Hey, welcome to, I believe, the sixth installment of Articulated Chat Road to JoeFest. So tonight I have another super awesome guest, very knowledgeable, part of the community that creates stuff about GI Joe, and he's another one of those torch bearers about GI Joe. And we're going to talk about creating GI Joe: A Real American Hero series of books. And it's a collection of art and designs from GI Joe: A Real American Hero brand. And this series, which is 10 volumes released so far, with an 11th volume currently on Kickstarter that ends Monday, showcases information obtained from people who worked on the GI Joe brand from 1982 to 1994, and showcases imagery documenting the development of figures, vehicles, and playsets. And it also shows unproduced, never released toy ideas. So tonight I have the special privilege of having Dan Klingensmith Jr. So welcome, Dan. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me
I'm,
on.
do- I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. So what's new out in Arizona? What's going on?
The heat.
Yeah, yeah, it's already
Yeah,
starting
it's
because
starting to warm up.
I'm right next door to you in New Mexico.
Okay, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
It
do.
I just emptied the pool and cleaned that out this weekend, so a little sore from that, but I thought it was gonna be in the 70s this weekend, and it uh tricked me a little bit. It was on Friday, it was 79, and then it creeped up to the 90s yesterday and today. So we're starting to warm up, getting ready for the summer, our summers, I should say. So
Yep.
a little
Yeah,
different than most.
we got hot. We got pretty hot here in New Mexico. We cracked 80.
Okay.
And I'm in Albuquerque, so I'm at like 7,000 feet above sea level. So we cracked 80 degrees. I turned on the air conditioner, but then at night it's still getting down to like 40. And then the past couple days it was like 60 degrees. So I'm like, yeah, forget it, whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we held off on the air conditioning as long as we could. So it's on now, but I had the windows open this morning. It's definitely cooler at night and in
yeah,
the mornings and stuff. So
yeah, for sure. So joining us so far, we have Chris from Cutthroat Comics. We got Samuel Edwards, Jeff Morris, Pericles Dragon Balls is here. Michael Gene Fleming, what's up? Jim from Largo's Lair is here. That's cool. Patrick Strauko's here. The Canuck, TJC, James from Ratface 44 Reviews is here. Yeah, we got a lot of people already rolling in. Thank you guys for being here.
awesome.
So, GI Joe. I know obviously like you're a lover, right? I can see your room, and your room is thoroughly impressive. You were kind of showing me around a little bit. What is GI Joe to you? Like what does it mean to you? I know it's kind of a broad
Uh,
question.
no, no, I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, it's just that brings you back. I mean, when I first started collecting, or now, or I guess it changed over time, but
Sure, whatever.
Um, okay. So originally, it's just kind of getting some toys I didn't have as a kid. When I first started collecting back in '95, that's what it was about. I graduated, had some. I know it's not what you usually spend graduation money on, but I did.
Yeah.
I've shared this before, but there's an old toy shop magazine that a guy at my dad's work brought in, and I saw some of those Chinese figures of like the Cobra Commander and stuff, even though they weren't the same character or the same molds per se.
Right.
I ended up buying a few of those, and then I got the bug. And of course, I played with GI Joe as a kid, and
Mhm.
just the nostalgia of a much simpler time, like everybody else. Um, I always loved the artwork on the packaging. That's not how I started collecting, but I was always a fan of that. I remember my dad does T-shirts and screen printing, so I used to get a light table. So I used to take the cards and trace them out and do different things at work, and draw, I should say, from the card art.
Right.
A little bit thicker cardboard, but I was able to do it somehow. But yeah,
Is that
I mean that.
is that kind of what got you into art?
A little bit. I mean, my dad's, like I said, he's a t-shirt printer, so art's always been in our family. My sister has a photography degree. My bachelor's is actually in photography, ironically enough. And then my
Yeah.
younger sister is in fashion design. So we all have this creative sense. I've gone
Mhm.
more business as far as career wise, but this is an outlet for me, the books that is, to express myself in a creative manner per se. So
Yeah.
it does fulfill that need, I guess you can say.
And one thing about your book series that I always appreciate is you always talk about like the art, the designs, the artwork, and things like that. And that's something that Carson Metaxas is very big on too, like the preservation and the love of that art. And my buddy Jay Bartlett and I, we do a weekly show every Friday, and we always talk about like package art is where toys are at the maximum competition, and how all of this is art. It's either sculpting art or it's character art or it's box art or things like that. And I think that sometimes the actual art piece is lost on people, and they just see like toy. I just see an action figure,
Hmm.
but not all the artistic design that goes into it. And that's one of the things that your book really sheds light on. Is you show like preliminary designs and things like that. And I always really appreciated that about your book series.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I originally conceptualized the idea, I I only had my figures behind me, right, in my vehicle, so I didn't really have much of the preliminary art. So originally, I was just gonna show a carded figure, and then I was gonna have the history behind the character, right? That's essentially like if you read my first email to Ron, it's hilarious because I asked him all these questions about characters, and he's like, "Well, I didn't do those." And I think I knew it, but I didn't know it, like the package art. So because I was
Right.
asking very specific questions about that, and so I was naive, probably, back then with it all. Um, but yeah, I mean, the package art is really what drew me to getting a carded in box collection. I mean,
Yeah.
the toys themselves, kind of going back to that time frame, I was just finding really good deals on carded stuff and ended up buying lots. And of course, being a fan of the artwork, that's what drew me in as a kid. I think outside of the cartoon, I think the cartoon was the initial, from what I recall, and then the toy because I saw the cartoon, of course, which it did exactly what Kirk Bazzigian wanted it to do, right? And those guys at
Yep.
Hasbro
Yeah.
sucked me in. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. A lot of people may not see product art the way that traditional art is looked at or viewed upon, but when you really look at the details of not only the package art but all the preliminary art, it really is, art. It's genuine art, and the gentlemen and the ladies that worked on the brand are artists in their own way. So whether it's a
Yeah.
toy or not, who cares? To me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Jeff Morris is saying he's in Chandler, Arizona. My wife and I have our AC set to 80 degrees. What? We don't consider it warm until it gets over 100. That's crazy.
yeah, we have it at 76 right now. So
It's always funny how everything temperature wise is relative.
oh
Um,
yeah. Oh, in
every
Ohio, you
time
would never have this.
yeah.
Never.
So my father lived in Brooklyn. My mother
Mhm.
lived in South Florida, and very like tropical, almost down by the Keys, Florida. And I would go from my father's to my mother's around like Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that. And there's people with they have like sweaters on and they're throwing blankets over their plants in their yards and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's like 70 degrees. What's the matter with you? It was always so
yeah.
weird just to see the difference. That's the whole snowbird thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, being from
Yeah.
Ohio, people make fun of me now because my blood. I'll say my blood is thinned out being in this warmer temperature. Uh, but I'll get colder a lot quicker, and my wife and her family will tease me and stuff. But I'm like, because we had my son's baseball games, and I bought some thermal underwear to wear to him because you're just sitting there and it's in the 50s, 60s. I
Yeah.
know back, like you said, back east. I can, that's nothing, when I was younger. But
That's a
now
warm
you're just sitting
spring
there.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But now I'm like, they're making fun of me. But by the end of the night, they're like, man, I wish I would have followed your footsteps there. So, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
but yeah, the weather's
And then,
fun.
yeah, Jeff Morris says GI Joe card backs are definitely art. And the Canuck says I'm in Arkansas and it's already too hot for me. So
And humid,
Arkansas
I'm
is
sure.
it's a little sticky. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
sticky.
for sure.
The last time I came home from the Middle East, we were sitting on the tarmac getting ready to leave, and it was like 110. And I kept telling all my soldiers, like, make sure you have cold weather gear, make sure you have cold weather gear. And they're like, nah, it's way too hot. Well, we stop in Germany at like 3 in the morning in December. And as soon as they opened the door to the plane, you could just see everyone like, no, they were all just dying. There's like 2 feet of snow on the ground. I was like, that's what you get. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've gone home to Christmas in shorts, and I get home and it's cold, but it's weird. I mean, we drove up north this past winter, and my wife's brother has a house up there, and so we
Mhm.
stayed at it. Well, there's 3 feet of snow. I'm in shorts, not realizing that the driveway was going to be blocked, by them plowing. So I had to get out there with a shovel and start shoveling a path for my truck to drive into the driveway. And I mean, it really didn't impact me like you think it would. So it was weird. Like I said, I think
Yeah.
because I was also moving around, I stayed
Yeah.
warm that way. But
You're working.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's working. There you go. So,
Very cool. And David Allen's here and says
hey,
hi.
Dave.
So, what's up, David? How you doing? Very cool. All right, so let's get into it. So let me pull this up and scoot my screen over a little bit because I got like 3 screens going on here. So you're going to be at JoeFest this year, correct?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, and you were there last year, obviously,
Yep.
which was very fun. Real quick, so we kind of already talked about that your history with GI Joe in the '80s and the importance of character illustrations to you and what that kind of means, but I wanted to do it with the slides, but we were just kind of organically talking about it.
Mhm.
And obviously, I got this image from Carson at 3djoes.com, so I always give him the shout out for that. But something about the Joe package art, cards, boxes, whatever, it always gave such weight to the objects. Like you can see the rivets, you can see the deck plates and things like that, and that like this is supposed to be like a heavy, clunky piece of military grade equipment, and that's something that I always appreciated with the Hector Garrido art and the later artists as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to chat on that.
Yeah, I mean the artwork itself. I mean, it just jumps at you, right? There's always action, and I talk about that in the upcoming book. A little bit about. I mean, I talked a little about it in the previous book, but in this upcoming book, I have a layout of front and the Mobat front and back, and interviewed Kirk Bazigian, and we went through literally every little piece of text and placement and everything on a card or a box. And there's a reason they did what they did, and
Yeah.
so they put different things in different places. So,
Right.
but no, I think it just goes to show you. I mean, and I've talked to the former, especially the vehicle guys, the amount of detail that they would put into the vehicles, even though they didn't have to, it was underneath the vehicle or whatnot, they still put a lot of detail in it.
Tracks in the terrain, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just, one vehicle that comes to mind is like the APC. I believe like you can see everything underneath it. A kid's not
Mhm.
going to ever see that, but,
Right.
um, to me, I think they said it didn't really cost much as far as to do that. When it came to the tooling cost and stuff like that. So adding that little detail in there, but that's what makes Joe so unique to me in comparison to a lot of toy lines, and just the amount of detail that they put into it, and the mobility of the figures and the movement, and those are all the things that I think as a kid that drew me into there. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Ted Darklaw from Hella Dope Toys is here and says, "Hey everyone, love the Road to Joe Fest series." So thanks, Ted. We appreciate that. So very cool.
Ted,
And speaking of the devil, there's my buddy Jay Bartlett. And Jay, I actually put this in here for you. So yeah, Silver Pads Grand Slam. There he is, right there. Um,
hard figure to
Jay and I,
come by. So
Jay and I were ranking all the '83 vehicles and stuff, and we were talking about Silver Pads Grand Slam and the jump and all that stuff the other day. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put that image in there
mhm. That's a
because I
great
love it
piece.
so
I mean,
much. Yeah.
it's a great piece, and I mean that was a hard piece to find back in the day. I don't know
Yeah.
how. I don't know if it's easier nowadays. With a lot more. How do you want to say it? Social media? I think you just have a lot wider net.
Internet
As far as
availability. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was doing eBay back in the '90s, and you had a couple forums and stuff like that, but that was about it. I think I got my Silver Grand Slam. Might have been, I don't know if it's Small Joe's or who it was from, but I think
Yeah.
it was
Small
around
Joe's is
three.
good.
It was one of my more expensive ones back in the day, and it's around 300. I think I paid for that back in the 90s. So I don't know what it's at now, but it definitely is a good piece. And I mean, I like the silver. I mean, I like the red, but I prefer the silver. I just think it pops.
Yeah. I have a preference for the silver pads Grand Slam, just personally. Like, red with the Hal is cool, but there's just something about silver pads Grand Slam. Even with my modern figures, I have the silver pads Grand Slam displayed on the jump because it just, it's like peanut butter and jelly. It just flows.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
yeah. Adam's here and says, good day. And David Allen says, world building. Yeah, definitely. And that's, I always talk about world building, because just the importance of world building and toys and lore and things like that. I just think it's important. It's important for play and it's important for development. And then, yeah, Jay says, yo, Joe, love it. Yeah. Oh, well, I hope you would, buddy, because that was for you. And Jim Largo says, I can't think of Grand Slam without thinking about breakfast at Denny's. Yeah. The Grand Slam breakfast. Yeah. And then Jay says he works so perfectly with the jump.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the
Or
visor
Stalker,
and the jetpack.
Yeah,
that's true. The Stalker could have been a good choice too, I guess. But
yeah, because in the animated series it was always Stalker, and then
True.
Duke in the movie and things like that. But they also sold versions of Stalker and Duke with the jump jetpack too, just the pack itself. But
yeah, I'm trying to think what they would have done differently with Stalker though, with his uniform. You know what I mean? If they had done that to really
yeah, in the
appeal
modern
to
version,
kids.
it's just like a different camouflage. Like
Yeah.
the green and the tan are just lighter, but it's the exact same pattern. So very cool. And you did some stuff with Brian Volkweiss for the Toys That Made Us, yeah?
Yeah. I actually just saw him on Thursday. He's actually down in there. He's over here in Arizona, so we met up real quick.
That's in one of my notes. So you wanna
Oh.
tell us about that? You guys went toy hunting.
Well, we met up real quick. It was midday, took a lunch break. He's at the Collectors Marketplace, which is a local store down here.
Yeah.
And so he's taking some books back with him. So to save on shipping and everything, he offered to pick them up. And good chance to get to see him and met his family and his kids and everything. And it's fun to kind of hang out a little bit. He's been here before. He's coming to my house once outside. He didn't come for the recording, I don't believe. I don't think he was here for that actually. But he came some other time and we hung out for a little bit. So things have changed though. He was here, like I was mentioning earlier to you, when it's a little bit more cramped in here. So hopefully he can come back soon and we'll hang out a little longer. But great guy. And he's been a big follower and believer in this product or in the book series for a long time, because he reached out to me when I had done for those of you who don't know, before I even did Kickstarter, I tried to do a pre-sale and it's going to be 250 pages I think at the time, and I forget the price point, but he reached out kind of when it didn't go anywhere, and because I just didn't get enough sales back then, and so he's been a big fan and very supportive as far as sharing out, and also just I was honored to be part of the Toys Made Us show, and because I know it's something that he had was passionate about and had worked hard on getting picked up by Netflix, because I know he had done a couple other channels per se, or I'm not sure what they want to call them, media channels to try to run it. So I was happy to see that he got his wish with that. So he's had a lot of success with that and other series. So
yeah, totally cool. And yeah, he's definitely, obviously he's a big toy guy as well, and he really believes in that stuff. So the Toys That Made Us, the toy store near you, all the other stuff that he does, and yeah, he's definitely a real busy guy.
oh yeah,
I've been picking up all his Robo Force like reimaginings, or because they're not re-releases, they're those characters like Wrecker but completely reimagined, and I love them. I think they're great.
I haven't picked up any myself yet. For now, I haven't ventured down that path. So I'm just sticking with Joe, and that's about it right now. So I think he understands that. We talked a little bit about that the other day. So
yeah, they scale well with the 1/18 scale Joe, so they look like they would be Joe mechs. Okay. So I just kind of have them interspersed, them and like some Masterpiece Transformers here and there, because obviously those worlds collided. So
yeah, for sure. I have some Masterpiece stuff I got years ago, which that's when Joe's kind of I don't know, it was '06, I think it was, maybe, when there wasn't much coming. DTC was done, and then we
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah, before
25th
the
anniversary.
moderns. Hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of got into Transformers Masterpiece for a minute. Uh, I have a decent amount, but those I was excited about opening and displaying and stuff like that. So I have
Yeah,
some of those
you
displayed.
have to display the masterpiece. That sound wave is just a thing of beauty. And I just picked up that 9-inch Machine Robo Revenge of Kronos Cycle from
Okay.
GoBots, and oh, he's
Oh,
so
okay.
good. He's so good. Because I was watching Dan Larson talk about him, and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna buy that." So I just had to get it. But it
Sucked
was
in.
actually Brian, and he and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, where when I watched, season 1, episode 4 is the GI Joe episode of the Toys That Made Us, which is still on Netflix for anybody who's hanging out and for some reason hasn't seen that series. Um, I was watching that episode, and obviously, I'm a huge lover of GI Joe. Ever since '82, I got in at the ground floor. I love it, love it, love it. But I had stopped collecting, and then as an adult, being in the military, very busy, coming and going, things like that. And I saw that episode, and I think that really lit the fire under me to start collecting again as an adult.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I can really kind of point to that, seeing all the modern stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm freaking doing it.
So you
So
blame Brian then essentially for what's behind you. That's great.
or I
Uh,
or I thank him, which yeah,
I'm
it's
joking.
probably
I'm
fifty
joking.
fifty. Yeah, it's 50-50. So Jeff Reed's here and he says, good evening, everyone. So good evening,
Hey, Jeff.
Jeff. Thanks for being here. David Allen, anyone who is interested in GI Joe should definitely get a set of history.
Thanks, Dave.
100%. And
Yeah,
then
Poison Oaks is a lot of
Cutthroat's,
fun.
oh yeah, Cutthroat saying hi to Jay Bartlett. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. I just kind of wanted to touch on that for a second. And another thing that I want to talk about, I have to thank you specifically because I do two shows. So I do this show, and then I do another show called Neon at Night, where I only talk about 90 to 94 Joes, and that's kind of like where I sort of planted my flag because I don't see anybody else talking about the Neon Joes, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of gems in those years that a lot of the purists tend to crap on, which I don't think is applicable or relevant. But I watched this. So this is your YouTube channel that you were doing with Kirk Bazigian, right? The Toy
Yeah,
Files.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did it. I've done something in the past. I'm trying to think of what it's called. 3.75-inch Joe, and
Mhm.
it is more audio. And then Kirk and I, when everybody's locked down for COVID and everything, we had talked. I wanted to kick something off again, and so we kind of went the video route, which I'm not a big video person. I always liked audio, but that's me.
Yeah.
But he convinced me to do it. So we do have a few episodes I have talked about in the books. I definitely want to get back to that. I know you offered your assistance with some of the editing, which would be wholeheartedly thank
I did.
you to you. So I need to take you up on it. I just need to finish up number 11's of course done. I'm actually working hard on number 12 already. So
You
um,
crank these books out. You just crank them out.
I'm getting there because I mean 12, 13, 11, 12, 13 were all essentially, let's say at least layout wise, have been done for about a month or so because that's
Yeah.
when I knew I had to buckle down and get one book out. So once I got my layouts done, I kind of had an idea what was coming and how many more volumes were going to come out this year. It really set the tone for the year. So it's going to be a busy year. But yeah, the podcast was a lot of fun. Kind of went back to my roots because the original thought with 3.75-inch Joe was to have two different former Hasbro employees on, series of questions. The goal was to end on, let's say, question number 25, right? And then if I wanted to have, let's say I had Kirk and Greg Bernston on, and then I had Ron and Mark on. If I want to do Ron and Kirk, my goal was to pick up at question number 26 and then continue.
Right.
It didn't work out very well because Kirk and Greg talked a lot, and and we didn't get through all the questions. Ron and Mark, we kind of went through more of the questions, so
Yeah.
kind of like bummed me out back then. And plus, I got busy with the books at that point because I was right in the beginning stages of the books. Um, but yeah, I need to get back to it. I mean, we had Kurt Crone and Dave Kunitz, and Vinny DeLeva as well as some of our
Yeah.
guests so far. So it'll be coming, and it's just a matter of me calling or texting someone and asking them, "Hey, this night," and I may do a couple episodes in a row, and then just release them, spread them out through releasing.
Yeah.
So
That's totally
we'll
cool.
see. Yeah, we'll see what we can get going here
And
near future.
yeah, and you and I have discussed behind the scenes, like, yeah, definitely. If you need some editing help, I'll totally help out. I love to edit stuff, so
Awesome.
that's
I appreciate it. Honestly.
and then David Allen says, props, Chad, Joe. Thank you, David. You're a really awesome guy. And then Anthony Romo, what's up, dude? Good to see you. And for anybody in the chat, if you haven't seen the Toy Files podcast, there's a link. Please go check it out. Link's also in the description. And then David says, Neon at Night is fire. I really appreciate that. And then Patrick Straukos asking you, any plans for a combined book at the end, maybe a hardback option? That'd be huge.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it had to be probably 2 books if I were to ever do something like that. At this time, that is not the plan. I do have a contract with Hasbro that ends this year, so my goal is to get these books out, and then maybe in the years to come, we'll see. Maybe we'll revisit it with Hasbro and see if they're interested in possibly working something out with that. So
I would
never
hope they
know. But
want
right
to.
now, I'm just working on getting these done.
Yeah,
At this time.
I'm gonna not I'm gonna not say or ask any follow on from that. I'm just gonna let it walk right by. So, and then Matthew Matson, what's up, dude? Says I didn't get a notification, but I checked, and there it is. I'll catch up listening 2 times speed until it's live. Cool. Well, sorry, but I'm glad you're here.
We won't talk fast.
No, we will talk slowly so you catch up. And then here's my buddy Johnny from Simple Tricks and Nonsense. He's in Florida. I live vicariously through this guy because all I want to do is go back to Florida. That's all I want to do. Good chat is back. Mirrorverse chat has been banished. Yeah, evil chat. I was rocking a goatee on leave, and I went back to work on Thursday. Yeah. So
Okay.
I got rid of it, but you
Yeah,
know,
you had a shave. Yeah,
yeah.
I trimmed my beard the other day, so I was getting a little rough.
I am
It's a lot
not
more
allowed to
grayer.
have facial hair. Not allowed. But where I was going with this, not only did I want to talk about it because this channel is absolutely phenomenal, and I watch your guys' videos over and over and over. I watch them all the time.
Appreciate it.
But specifically, my Neon at Night co-host Nick was here in Albuquerque, and we went toy hunting, and we thought, oh, it might be kind of cool if we just do like an impromptu Neon at Night. And since he was here like live and in Technicolor, so we did one, and because it was so short notice, he was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, we're just going to have to throw it together. And I was like, you know what? As I was building the show notes for us for tonight, I was like, I really want to talk about what would have been for 1995. And so, like, I studied your video. I grabbed parts of the whole pitch video, and we talked about Battle Corps Rangers and things like that, and the new Star Brigade, and it went over really well. So thank you for that. So
No, I mean that was so I had bought out some stuff from somebody and a bunch of VHS. They had a lot of videos, and some were VHS, some were what they're called, but I had to go actually get them digitized through somebody's. Like I couldn't do it at home. Like I didn't have a player, and this person was like, "Yeah, you need to get that digitized soon because the film's going to start getting old." And some of them
like
had
Super 8,
no, like beta. What are they? Beta? Is that another? They were kind
Betamax.
of like Betamax. They're kind of like Betamax, but they weren't.
Hmm.
And so he was able to transfer them over. I was hoping to have a couple more gems. I had a couple. I think I played one. I don't know if I put it on there, but it was like a sales meeting, I think, video. It was like just the presentation, I should say. But yeah, most of them were just like Toy Fair stuff. So, it didn't cost me too much. I was a little bummed out, but I mean, at least I preserved it. But this video in particular, I had my VHS player, had my digitizer, and I popped this thing in. I, I forget what it's labeled as. It's up there somewhere. Joe video, or I forget what it's called, but let's see, it's on it. And as soon as I popped it in and started watching, I'm like, oh my goodness, because I love them animals. I love I know I'm the odd one in the group in that sense, but the
I like
replicators.
I like the replicators of animals more than Lobotomax. So
Yeah, the animals are just, I don't know. I mean, I have a pretty solid collection of manimal stuff that I've gotten over the years. That was some of the first artwork I actually purchased pre-production wise, back in '05. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a great video, and you saw things that I'd never seen, and just to be witnessing it. And I think he even used the wrong manimal names. I think he used Wave 2 names, if I recall,
yeah.
when he's talking about the manimals. So, and I have some original artwork of some of that Wave 2 as well. So,
And you
hopefully
actually
I'll be.
talk about that in your video.
Do I? Okay. Okay. I don't remember. It's been a minute. But yeah, is a great video, and I was so excited to share it out because I had some pictures from the model shop too, and I think it's wax of Duke '93 if I recall.
Oh,
So that I had shared. So, what were your favorite parts of that video? What drew you towards? What were you most excited to see? I guess like me, I had like an aha moment. Like, oh my god, like that excitement. Was there anything specific that you were just excited to see out of there?
yes. So, really quick, Anthony Whitehead, thank you very much. Hey, Chad, love the channel. I really appreciate that. I just like hanging out and talking Joe and talking toys, and I like stuff. So, thanks for hanging out. Um, what really stood out to me was just the whole what could have been, exactly
Mhm.
like the video says. Like what could have been. I really like the idea of Battle Corps Rangers. When Kirk and I talked, I had him on Neon at Night, because he was
Mhm.
the head of Boys Toys then, and we talked about that whole leave no flank uncovered, like they used to do in the '60s, and him and Steve DeGuano, and just the whole language of GI Joe. And I was very, very interested in where Battle Corps Rangers was going to kind of take Joe back to that spirit of '82 to '85 sort of thing, but not so on the nose about it. I
Mhm.
really wanted to see that Battle Corps Rangers killer whale. I maybe someday. And then like David Allen says right here,
There,
50th
there you
anniversary, maybe. I wish, but I'm not saying this to crap on Hasbro. This is not about crapping on Hasbro, but they didn't do shit for the 40th anniversary for a Real American Hero, and it made me sad. And hopefully for the 50th they do. But at that point, I
go.
don't even know if whatever. I don't even know if I'll still be collecting when I'm 60, but we'll
Sure,
see.
sure you will. We'll see. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think the tooling cost could be there, for the whale, of course. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm fortunate to have a proof of the sea wolf, so that'll be featured up here in upcoming two book. Um, so that is exciting to see that because it's actually just someone had a proof and they're like, "Hey, do you want this?" And I'm like, "What do you have?" And then they showed me. I'm like, "Well, yeah, definitely." And like that didn't come out, so I'm honored to have that piece and be able to preserve that. And I know Drew Haggerty has another piece of the transportable battle platform modified version for Battle Corps Rangers. So that's another
How
cool
cool
piece.
is that? How cool is that?
So
That's really, really, really like when I look back and you learn more about the stuff that they did want to do to keep the brand going. And that's the thing where people thought the '90s were so bad for Joe, but it wasn't. It really wasn't at all.
mhm.
So
Now, when you started back in, not started, but when you kind of dove in, like you said, after the Toys That Made Us, um, did you know about all this stuff, or is this something you learned after, like diving in more, you know, into the brand?
I didn't learn a lot of this stuff until I started re reinvesting in my love affair with GI Joe as an
Okay.
adult. Because
Okay.
when I was younger and I was a kid
Yeah.
up until my teenage years, it was just like, yay, toys. And then as I became an adult and I started learning all the stuff that like oh well, the UK and Australian version of Grand Slam with the jump came with the red version 1 Grand Slam because there was no 1.5 version Grand Slam. In fact, Jay Bartlett and I were just talking about that with some people from Australia and UK on his channel on Friday, because there never was a version 1.5 Grand Slam. So you would get
Interesting.
the straight arm Grand Slam with the red pads and blah blah blah. And so that's when I really started learning all that stuff. And kind of going back to what you were talking about with speaking with Ron Rudat,
Mm-hmm.
some stuff I had to learn the hard way. I didn't know that Ron didn't design version 2 Storm Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that out the hard way because I asked him to sign a version 2 Storm Shadow. He was
Would
like,
he
I
not
didn't
sign
design
it?
that one.
Okay,
No,
yeah, he's pretty.
well,
humble with
he
that.
said he didn't design it. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then I was talking to Carson. This was last year at JoeFest while we were all there.
Okay.
And then I was talking to Carson about it later. He was like, yeah, man, that was after Ron. It's like,
Yeah, it's Mark
I don't
Pennington.
know. I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
shared that page out, so that's a beautiful. That I
Oh,
love that Mark's ink of it, and then I believe it's George Woodbridge who did the painting of
yeah.
that. So yeah, that's a beautiful, and then the package art, of course. So
Yeah.
all great pieces for Storm Shadow version 2, of course, just art wise.
Jay, Mr. Bartlett, if you're still here, let me know that you're still here, because Dan and I put version 2 Storm Shadow in here just for you, buddy. So I hope you're still here. And then David said, Chad, that's where all cool Joe bros are. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Gene Fleming, I don't know if enough people would agree to make it successful, but I think a 95 Haslab centered around the whale would be great. I absolutely agree. I have said numerous times, if you want to make a 1/18 scale Haslab that people want or need, like, how many people have whales with busted vanes, that the sled won't launch anymore, or they're missing the little scooter and things like that? Sky Strikers, right? A lot of us have Sky Strikers galore, every different version of a Sky Striker. I always said, Michael, that they should do a Haslab whale, and I definitely think it should be Battle Corps Rangers, 100%.
I mean, you could do the whale, and you could do all the figures could be the unreleased characters that are never released as like
So
the
good, right?
carded
The
versions
stretch
of them. That'd
goals,
be fun. Yeah,
yeah,
like stretch goals and stuff. I mean,
yeah, that would be fantastic.
for HasCon, this after HasCon, we had toyed with the idea of a couple different things when it came to exclusives for the next HasCon, which hasn't happened, unfortunately, and I don't know if
Yeah,
it will, but
yeah. I was talking to Bobby Valla about Hascon.
yeah. But Daryl and I talked, shortly after, and I was really stoked about what we had done, and we talked a little bit about some exclusives. I know one of the things was in regards to the Baroness, and maybe doing something like that for that. There's also a couple when I was up there and we were going through some of the binders. There's a set of figures. It's a subgroup, which you guys will see later on. But we actually contacted, I remember him calling Brian Savage and just like, hey, can we do this? And, Brian's like, no, we already have it planned this year. And, it's too late. But
Yeah,
some really cool unproduced concepts. I mean, they're repaints, redecos of characters, but maybe characters you would never have thought of, to be redecoed for this subgroup. So
yep,
looking
yep.
forward to featuring that, and maybe a little bonus with that. I'm still in the works of getting all the details, but might be something fun in a way of that as far as a stretch goal and something related
I
to that subgroup. So
I love all the unproduced stuff that you show in every volume. You may think GI Joe, but I'm going to tell all of you that are hanging out with us right now, until you read these books, you don't know GI Joe, because you'll see a vehicle and be like, man, that thing is cool. Why didn't I get that? Yeah, there's some amazing stuff in there. And then Michael says, anyone that thinks GI Joe was dying in the 90s needs to get a hold of the 93 insert catalog. That thing is massive. Yeah, 92 was Joe's second biggest year. So
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, look at all. I mean, I know that a lot of the characters are being reused, but I mean, look at the amount of figures that were released in '93 to '94. I know the vehicles were kind of being pulled back in a lot of ways as far as what was being released is more transitioning to a figure line per se, but that's just had to change with the times. So, but yeah,
But I got a Headhunter Stormtrooper.
There you go. And Headhunter, I think it's the one. Yeah, I think I mentioned this other day to someone, but Headhunter's file card, when you get the newest book, definitely read a little blurb, like from Larry Hama's original dossiers, because some major changes if you compare that to the original one. There's some fun, interesting information in there that I share out. So,
speaking of file cards, anyway, yes, Michael, thank you very much for that.
yes,
I love this file card. I love this file card, and it is the original controversial file card. I love the fact that you included a single card file card for Zartan. This is fantastic. It came with your book, and I love it. I have it displayed in here. It's just fantastic.
awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I mean, it is a fun project to work on. I mean, when everybody kind of talked about it, right? We all knew like he's the only vehicle driver I think ever featured on the back of a card. I think ever, if I think about it. But so there's always that speculation that he's going to be a single carded figure. So I had some memos, not memos, but I have some like assortment details that kind of have him listed on there as open stock characters with a carded figure is called technically. And so he was on there, and then I'm talking to the guys, you kind of learn that. And then I have some Xerox copies of the front and back of a lot of carded figures. So it'd probably be a proof, like a black and white Xerox copy of a proof, front and back. And so there'd be little notes written on them. And that was one of the ones I saw was in regards to was in regards to Zartan, and as the single carded one. And so I just thought people would appreciate it since we never had it. And maybe you can build a custom to go on it. I have no idea. You can do what you want with it. But it's a fun project. It's a fun project. My dad actually helped me out a little bit on that too, and cleaning it up while I was working on some of the other stuff. So
it is
very happy with it.
Yeah, it is absolutely fantastic for anyone that hasn't seen this. And I put my hat on so Dan and I can be hat bros. But this is the single card for Zartan, and it was included with the last issue, right? 10?
Yeah. 9 and 10, yep.
And then there's the back. So this card is perfect.
So we essentially overlaid it over the Xerox copy in Photoshop, and try to line everything up as it should exactly. So
it's fantastic. I love it so much. And then David Allen said Pat and Chris did a really cool presentation of this stuff at Assembly Required last year. Which Pat and Chris? We talking McLeod and Stewart and McLeod?
Pat Stewart, and I'm assuming Chris Murray is who he's referring to.
Oh, not Christopher McLeod? Okay. Yeah.
I don't think so. But
Patrick, not Picard Stewart? Yeah.
Yes. So I'm not sure what he means of this stuff, but
I don't know.
So we'll see. We'll see if he responds.
Everybody was messing with Pat this last year at JoeFest. Like, I guess somebody had a bunch of like baseball cards printed up of him, and they were giving them to people like, hey, go up to Pat and ask him to sign them. And it's just messing with him. So my wife did it. She walked up to him. She's like, hey, will you sign this? And he was like,
That's funny.
So yes, it was Stewart and McLeod.
Oh, okay.
Right on. And then all the way from the UK, Mr. Action Force himself, George Aiken, is here. Good to see you, George. So, George, if you don't know George, Dan, he has this magical portal, kind of like Narnia, and he just opens it, and like all this mint condition, complete Action Force stuff just falls out.
Nice. So
he has like 40 shadow tracks or something. It's ridiculous.
Good problem to have, right?
Oh, I love his collection. I love to just go see his collection. So he'll post something in like one of the Action Force groups, and it just is like, oh, random Z Force, right? And it's like 20 ATCs in a convoy, and I'm like, get out of here with that. So he's so rad. Jeff Morris says, I just picked up a V2 Storm Shadow yesterday. It's a complete UK, the Action Force variant. So the International Heroes? That would be G.I. Joe International Heroes, right? Version 2 Storm Shadow?
think
Anyway,
so.
yeah, a little yellow, but still nice. Yeah, that's George, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the time V2 Storm Shadow hit the UK, that was G.I. Joe International Heroes, correct? And then Patrick, Mr. Big Bacon, is here, and he says, Dan the man. Very true. Dem Guts, what's up, buddy? Says, what's up, Chad and Dan? Cool. Adam Howes, facts. Dan's books are a must-have for fans of the line and plenty of custom potential with the unreleased insights. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love
And
seeing
then
someone just posted a custom of low light today from the book. So one of the color studies for low light. So I think he tagged me on it, so you can go to my page and see it. But that's another thing of the books. It's fun. I love seeing when people not only try to customize like maybe unreleased, but character per se, but also just even color variants of a particular figure and just different looks. So
yeah, it's really interesting to see like the evolution of the colorways and things like that. I always get a kick out of that stuff, like what Snake Eyes would have looked like. I know a lot of people haven't seen that, and I'm like, I'd buy that. I will make that. I will definitely do that. I made a, in the comics where they kind of go back to how Snake Eyes got disfigured and they show Scarlet while they were kind of on one of their first like super missions together, and she's in that all OD green. So I just made a Scarlet like that. It's pretty much just a kit bash, but I always go through the comics and things like that, and I'm like, I'm going to make that figure. And it just kind of bust it out.
I mean, someday I'd like to do more customs. I mean, I have a couple vehicles and stuff I'd hoped I bought, they're modern era stuff, but I was going to customize them and stuff like that, but we'll see. I mean, even with vintage stuff and especially prices nowadays, a little bit different game than it was,
Yeah,
20 some years ago when I was getting into it. So,
especially post COVID.
Yes,
prices.
exactly. So we'll see, but maybe eventually. That's what I figure when I'm retired. That's what I can do is just pull out get some Joes on sale and maybe do some customs of stuff that I've always wanted to do.
I started getting a lot of fodder lots, and I was just like, just kit bashing and learning how to crack torsos and customize and all that stuff with fodder lots, and just kind of learned like that. I learned a lot from like Matthew LaCroix and Mikey Kukovic and things like that. And I had them on the last episode because we're all like buddies and stuff. That was pretty fun. But
yeah, they do some great stuff. So
yeah, and then anybody who's hanging out with us here tonight, as soon as we started talking about customs, they know that I have this thing with his tanks, and I've got a zillion of them. And yeah,
do you have a green one? Did you do a green one based on the original concept or no?
Yes, I do have an OD green one. I have a desert tan one. I mean, I could go into all of them, but I made a Crimson Guard one. I made a Hiss one and a Hiss 2 Iron Grenadier. Yeah, I got tons.
Have you tried to make the version 1 though with the mouth opening or no?
No.
Come on now, you test those waters.
I haven't gone that wacky. That's a lot of dremeling. Plus it's like mechanisms. So
it is. It would be.
The only custom vehicle that I really made that has parts that extend and pull out and things like that is I made a true G.I. Joe 118 scale masked Rhino, and I can actually like open the back and lift it up, and the missiles in there and things like that. The ram doesn't ram, but yeah. Anyway,
that's cool.
But yeah, big fan. And then Matthew Matson says, "Love the original file card." Yeah, it's fantastic. David says the same. Love this card. Woodman's late, but that's okay. Good evening to you. George Aiken says it was released in '85 on the Action Force card, then re-released in '87 as Action Force International Heroes version 2. Version 2 was 1988. I don't know. I think we're talking about version 1. Whatever.
Yeah, I think it's version 1.
And then Jeff says my card back for version 2 says G.I. Joe Action Force on the front of it. Okay. Cool. Good to know. I don't know. And then Bo says, Dan, will you have past copies available at JoeFest this year?
Possibly. What I've learned is shipping books can be very expensive back and forth. So I may just have something to where I'll do sales there and then possibly do like free shipping or something like that. It just depends. I haven't decided. how I'm going to manage that, because I've done a couple shows where it's, take a lot. And, I've learned that people go to shows to buy toys, not books typically. But, if you hit me up prior, Bo, if someone lets me know ahead of time that they would like me to bring a set for them or whatever, I can sometimes manage to do that as well. So you could always message me if you'd like, or email me.
And I'm going to pitch it now just because I can, since it's applicable to the topic. You can also bring your books and have Dan sign them. So
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, thank you for signing my books last year. I really
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really cool. The ma'am and I walked in, and she had the books in her bag, and I was like, all right, we got to go find Dan first. Let's go find Dan.
Hopefully not the whole set. It can get kind of heavy.
No, yeah, it was just 3 of them.
Okay.
And then Matt says, Storm Shadow version 2 is my favorite G.I. Joe figure, and I'm caught up. Very good. Glad you're caught up. David Allen, Dan, could you get that Viper from the 90 file card represented that never had one released?
Are you talking about, what's it called? What's the orange one? Track Viper? The Detonator one?
Yeah.
Is that what he's talking about?
Uh-huh. I believe that's what he's talking about, right? Because Detonator was 1990, and that's the Viper that never had a file card. In fact, I just unboxed my Detonator a couple weeks ago.
I think I saw it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if I had a file card for him until recently. Because, again, I started out loose and stuff like that back in the day, but I bought essentially someone's entire catalog collection. And so they had a couple Action and News, and there was in there still uncut. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I do have it. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some ideas as far as card backs that I'm playing with. It's all going to come down to time, and like I said, with that unreleased subset, there may be a surprise there coming up in the future. It's just all a matter of time and just getting the right people to be on board with it and making sure that they have time to do it. So we'll see what's to come, because there's a couple ideas I pitched to Hasbro in regards to different things. The one that I'm mentioning, or I'm alluding to, essentially was approved by them. I mean, I have to show them everything, but the concept was approved by them as far as, it'd be kind of fun to see that. So we'll see. Hopefully I can get that lined up here soon. And that will probably come out based on the person I'm having help with it. Timing, I think I moved these things from volume 12 to volume 13. So that way, give them a little bit more time. So I actually had to measure something on it. Be honest with you, I need to do that tonight. I keep forgetting to do it, but I have all my books.
And miss your Phoenix Suns game?
Oh, sure. Well, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. And anyway, cool. Thanks for that question, David. And then Will says, I'm late, but hey, we're glad you're here. And then for anybody who has not seen this video, I just put the link in the chat. And again, it's in the description. Please go check that video out. It is fantastic. And it is an awesome window.
The announcer is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Talking to.
Oh, yeah. Star Brigade. Yeah. He's very, yeah. And we kept talking about that on my stream. Like, a lot of people were making comments about just his, just how he was emphasizing everything. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you got to get the people in the suits pumped up for this stuff. So it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it.
I had a video of Jurassic Park stuff that I had gotten from somebody else, and I'd asked him, like, who's doing this? Because it sounded like him, and it was him who was talking, and his hands in the video, playing with Matchbox cars for Jurassic Park or whatever. So it's kind of funny to hear that as well, but that was not him talking in this video. So
no,
I don't know who that was actually. Maybe I'll seek him out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe he'll do an intro for the Toy Files.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. So anyway, now we're going to get into the books. Dem Guts, like Vin Diesel Street Sharks. Vin Diesel did Street Sharks? I don't know. What?
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, me either. So you're real passionate as a historian and a preservationist of G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
So how did
just you? A little.
Yeah, just a tad. So
at that.
creating GI Joe, how did you come up with this? Like, when did you come up with it? How did you pitch it? I don't know if you want to share that with us.
Let's see. So I share this sometimes, like it is an interview that Ron Ruda had done with yojo.com. I think Kevin Watts had done it. I don't know if it was on the phone or email or how he did it, but just something Ron had shared at the very end of it in regards to, people getting credit for GI Joe and GI Joe success, right? In certain departments. And to me, does that department deserve respect and credit? Sure. I mean, they're part of the team.
Yep.
So I want to say is around 07, 08 is when I really started to, I started buying books on just different art books and looking at Barnes and Noble, and just seeing what was out there just to kind of get an idea. Like I had like a Jack Kirby book and a couple others. It's kind of like, how do you feature people? Like, how do you feature their art?
Right.
And so my original concept, like I said, was to essentially show my collection in a book with the history behind the brand. And then it led into, reaching out and having some luck in acquiring some unproduced, or not unproduced, but some never before seen or very limited visual concepts as far as, the concept designs and the preliminaries and all that. So it kind of grew from there. But originally, the idea came from that interview. I knew how to be a bigger team involved, and then it just kind of spiraled out of there. Because in the beginning, I knew I had to have certain people on board.
Yeah.
It was a challenge at times in the beginning because some of those people still worked at Hasbro, and so they couldn't partake, in the books.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's just because they still work there. I think it's just hard. You know, at that time, it wasn't licensed or anything, and there's some steps I did to try to get it licensed, and it just would never get off the ground at that time. Um, in
But it is
regards to the
now.
books, it is now. It is
Yeah.
officially licensed.
Yeah.
That's why you see the GI Joe logo on it. So, it was originally entitled 3.75-inch Joe. It was the original title, and then it changed to what my original idea was, which was creating GI Joe. I still have my pitch book somewhere because I remember taking that to 2013, I think, Comic Con, and I met with some people at IDW and showed them the pitch book, and they took the pitch book, the one version I had, just to see if they could pick it up or wanted to pick it up. I talked to a couple different publishers there, with no luck, unfortunately. But
Mm.
here we are today. I'm very happy to just be in, my own control of how I do this thing, and no pressure from somebody else or another organization, in regards to, I mean, besides the contract, but that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But as far as a publisher pushing, hey, we need this or that. So, it's really on my own time, and it's just a matter of fitting it in with my real life work and kids and family and all that other stuff that we all
All
have
that life
outside of this.
junk.
All that,
Stupid
I
life
don't call
junk.
it junk. Yeah. Uh, life in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's the best way to describe where it really originated from, was from that interview and wanting to recognize everybody, and if we get into it, I'll talk a little bit about what each volume kind of entails, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I mean, after the first four books with the history of GI Joe, the book series technically extended. I knew, I think I had enough material to get to 8, and then I knew I had enough to get to 10, and then I knew enough to get to 12, and now, I, like I said, I recently did a lot of work just to kind of really get an idea, where can I end, and I think 14 is going to be the magic number. So, which is where I'm at now. So we'll see. Maybe 14 and a half. I don't know. No. We'll see how it
14 and
plays
a
out.
half. It's just like some pages that you just scan onto the internet. You're like, there you go, whatever.
There you go. Well, no, because originally it was going to be 13, and then I knew I was going to have additional stuff, so I thought about, maybe doing a 14th, but call it 13.75 or something like that.
Hey, look at that. Yeah.
But I think we'll go 14. I think I have enough to do a full 80-page book, if not more. The last book may be thicker. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So
Go out with a bang, right?
go out with a bang. There you go.
And then, so Demguts said, yeah, Vin Diesel did do a promo for Street Shark toys. I'm actually going to go find that. Family, Street Sharks. And then Jeff's here. Evening. Hope you're all doing well. Also love the shirt, Chad. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's my Claymore Mine shirt. and I'm a big fan. So I wonder where that. Here's Patrick Strauko says I can't find a pre-blackened Snake Eyes, so he can't find the version of Snake Eyes that still had the deco on Google. Link or idea where to search for? I just searched for original. I don't remember what it was. Original Snake Eyes color design or something like that.
Is he talking about 82, 85?
Yeah, the original Snake Eyes when he still was colored.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there is anything really out there. I know
Yeah,
what
I
was
had
shared with
seen it a
me.
while ago. Yeah,
I know that I know what was shared with me as far as some of the original colors. I mean, it's very interesting because I mean, some of the memos I have do not. I mean, it had to be very, very early when they talked about cutting that
yep.
because I have memos, internal memos that talk about some of the changes that were happening in the 82 figures, and it's not in there. And then I have an entire color chart that it's like on blueprint material that has the original um, PMS squares even on there, which I need to. I've done some research with that because I think some of the colors did change on 82s as far as the greens and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's
Um,
another question about that I'm going to throw up here in a second.
so we'll see. I mean, I'd love to do something someday, maybe with that. I don't know, just for shits and giggles. But as far as the 82 Snake Eyes, I don't think there's anything that really exists out there per se. So
This is also like once they set the line, right, with the original 13 and they set the line and then okay, the Mobat and Steeler and this and that, and then they got like this is what it's going to cost. And from what I was tracking, it was well, we're going to remove blah 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 off a bunch of figures, and they're like, we'll just take it off of right. And they talk
yeah,
about that in the toys that made us. They made the decision to take all the deco off of Snake Eyes, but that was also before they put the whole line on pause for that year. So it was pretty early.
yeah, I think it was pretty early, and so 'cause I know
Yeah.
that's one of when we talked about the toys that made us and what they were going to feature as far as the story, I guess you can say, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was originally, I think it's okay to share now, but that was originally what was kind of pitched to me as far as like sharing a story of Snake Eyes and getting rid of the decos. But I, I had thought a better story would be, kind of bringing back GI Joe, Steven and him really giving those guys a couple chances, but then really bought into it and
Yeah.
and said it is go. So I think that's a stronger story, and I thought again it wasn't just about one figure; it's about the brand itself. So I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of cool to hear and listen to those guys share their experience being in a room with those guys
Yeah.
or
Where
with him.
Steve DeGuano's talking about it and how they're like
Yeah,
smashing
I mean,
everything around.
I wish they had video camera. Like, I mean, I know they had video camera. I wish they had videoed themselves in these presentations back then because I'm
Right.
sure I can just imagine, how fun they would be just to watch today. I mean, maybe I know I have some Griffin Bacall stuff, but nothing like that. Nothing that I'm aware of exists as far as presentations, which
Right.
maybe it was smart back then, or even I don't know if they do it now. Maybe just for privacy reasons, they may not want it videotaped in case it leaks out or something like that. So
Yeah, I would love
I
to
don't
be a
know.
fly on the wall at some of these decision meetings. They're like, so let's make 6-inch Falcon look like Matt Damon and make everybody mad. Sorry, I just like to poke.
No, yeah, no, I that sculpt's a little rough. So
Yeah. And then Anthony Whitehead. Breaker is my favorite Joe figure. In the commercials in 82, he has orange or yellow pockets on his pants. Was this a prototype or was he supposed to have those? I've never found an answer.
I think it's all timing. I think it was timing with the commercials because if you look at the original commercial, Scarlett also has really long hair. And so I shared in the most, I can't remember if she's in 9 or 10 because I released them together. I don't remember which one she's in. But there's a like mock-up card where it does show her and she does look to have long hair there.
Yeah.
So I
I've
think it was
actually
just,
got that spread. We're going to show that.
okay. I think it was
Yeah.
just timing. I think it was just timing of, them doing what they were trying to do as far as releasing that there's just some changes in how the characters looked.
Yeah.
And the same thing
Scarlet's
goes for the comic as well. I think I featured it or shared out, not in the books, but just in general. Like, is it Dr. Burkhart? Is that her name, right? The first comic.
yes, the first
Like,
first issue.
yeah, like I have
Mhm.
a Xerox copies of the preliminaries to that, and she doesn't look anything like what she came out as. So I think it's just sometimes they're moving so fast that first year that there's just some crossover as far as like what he's discussing as far as um, colors. But I can check. I mean, I'll see because some of this stuff when I feature Breaker, I may not have had that memo at the time. But like I said, I have a memo that talks about changes to 82 characters. So if you ping me, I can go look and see if some of those things were eliminated for the final version. I'll be more than happy to check.
Very cool. There you go, Anthony. And I also know that if you watch a lot of the commercials, especially if you go to 3D Joe's on YouTube and you look at all the commercials broken down by year, if you look at the one that introduces Tomax and Zamoth, those head sculpts are totally different. So a lot of times they use
Yeah.
prototypes in the commercials. And then in the later years, the figure art on the card is the prototype of the figure. It's not the figure that's in the blister. So, like, especially like a character like Gristle, it shows him with long sleeves and completely different designs than what you're looking at in the package. So
Yeah, I
they
think
really did
Destro.
that. Kirk and I talked about that a lot, that like toward the later years, they were just cranking it out. And
Yeah.
so you'd see a lot of original
Well,
preliminary art. And also Scarlet, in a lot of the early Joe designs, Scarlet was wearing the OD green with the red collar, and she was wearing a helmet. So when the figure came out, she definitely looked different.
yeah, I'm looking at my sample pages here real quick, but um, like Destro is one of those characters. If you look on, I forget which one he's on, but it's a colored piece of art of Destro. Let's see. I think I mentioned it somewhere, but so here's like a page of Destro. So you'll see that art.
Yep.
This art in color though on the back of one of the packaging. I'm trying to remember which character it was, but for Star Brigade, it's kind of them featuring Star Brigade, but it's not the final version that we get, here
Oh, here,
on the
I'll make
Carter
you big
version.
again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's not this art, it's that art colored.
Yeah.
So to what you're saying, just to kind of prove out what you're saying, I agree. There are some definitely some changes there. So yeah.
And that's okay. It happened, and to me, that's part of the charm of it, is that
Yeah.
you can pick this stuff out and go find it. Especially when I showed that picture of like 6 of the original Joes raising the flag, you can see that Scarlet has the helmet, has the red collar. She doesn't
Well,
have
yeah,
her little like cream colored jumpsuit on.
because originally, they were going to have the helmets sculpted into the head or on
Yep.
the head, I guess you could say.
Right.
So, and I show that in volume 6, I think, with Grunt. I've been very fortunate. I have a couple 2-up heads of that helmet still
So awesome.
sculpted on, so pretty cool to see, which matches the original or the early conceptual art for those characters.
Yeah.
As well.
I'm so glad they didn't do it though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that helmet, but I mean, it is cool to see and have. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then Dale Santafort's here. What's up, Dale? It's okay to be late. I'm glad you're still here. And then he says, all my shows are on the same day. Sorry, buddy. Packers is here. What's up, Packers? Very cool. And then Dale says, hello, Ed McMahon, Chad. Everybody show your talent. I don't know. So I joke with my buddy Jay Bartlett that he's Johnny Carson and I'm Ed McMahon. Because sometimes he's very eloquent when he talks about a figure or a vehicle. And he'll just go on and on. Oh, it's this and it's that. And he talks about all his memories when he was a kid. And then I just go, you are correct. So I just do the Ed McMahon thing, but whatever. And then Demgut said he just sent you a message on Messenger. Very cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Jeff says, I bought a shirt that simply stated, I hate sand and camels. It was a wonderful shirt. I can't stand camels. Someday, Jeff, I will get the ma'am, aka my wife. I will get the ma'am to tell the story about how all she wanted to do when she was in East Africa when we were deployed was ride a camel. And then she rode a camel, and the thing was like a total a-hole to her. and threw her and tried to bite her and was spitting on her and stuff. And she was like, I almost shot that camel. It's like, yeah, I don't blame you. Woodman says, I bought the first 7 books. Absolutely amazing content. Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
George has to go. George, thanks for coming, because George is all the way in the UK, but we always appreciate you coming. Demgut's going to check out the books. Please do. You will not be disappointed that you found those books, because they are fantastic. Kirk's Corner, what's up? Glad to see you. Glad you're here. David Allen, I love what Dan has done. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then Kirk, what's Dan's YouTube channel? I will throw it. It's actually in the description, but this is for you, Kirk's Corner, right there. I just put it back in the chat.
I know I have, he may be referring to my old channel, which is dansjoes.com.
Oh, yeah, probably.
With my
I'm
collection.
sorry.
So no, I haven't updated that. I don't even know when I did that. The video is from 1997, 98, when I was still in Ohio, just as a, I think back and I hear my voice and just like, what is going on? I was 18, 19 years old, and I was doing it more for insurance purposes too, just to kind of record everything I had. And then YouTube, I don't know when YouTube started, but I think I posted in like 2010. It's the most generic looking video of my collection. It's, very amateurish, but as again, 18, 19, using a old camcorder back then. So
it's for posterity.
Yes.
And you actually, real quick, so Zazel from Sergeant Slaughter Slaughterhouse is in the house, and we all love Zazel, so thank you for being here, Zazel. Greatly appreciate it. He's going to be at JoeFest this year, and we're going to be roomies, and it's going to be fantastic. So you get to meet the Australian legend himself. I have to agree with you. Yeah, he's such a great dude. I have to agree with you about filming, like having some kind of filmic or photographic evidence of your collection. Like, yeah, I have insurance too. I have, well, it's not homeowners, right? Because I live in military housing, but even living in military housing, we're required to have renter's insurance. But I have evidence of everything that I own, because if this house burns down, I'm going to knock on wood.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I mean, if you have a substantial collection, I definitely. This is not a pitch for anybody. I won't, get insurance, for your collection.
Yep.
And then, I mean, there's collector's insurance out there, so I don't know if most homeowners insurance won't cover. I think, but scary enough, I didn't have insurance on it for many years when I was in Ohio. When I didn't even live there, it's still at my parents' house, but I finally got it when I moved it down to Arizona, thankfully, because we actually got my mom and I drove it down, and in Oklahoma someone sideswiped our truck, and luckily I was in a big enough truck that I didn't feel it really, but it did happen. So I'm glad that I had insurance just for that sake, in case something had happened. Let alone just me and my mom, but the collection itself too. So
yeah. And I'm sure everybody knows at the end of the day, like, stuff can be replaced. Even though we all love stuff, stuff can be replaced. But,
for sure.
And then Pericles says, that's wild. I don't know what's wild, but yeah, it's wild. Cool. David Allen, Chad and Dan, has anyone ever talked or spoken about the difference or change in the line from 82 to 83? There's a big difference with story and elements. Dan?
Story elements as far as the comics, or
I guess
I'm not sure.
Maybe aesthetic? It just says story and elements.
Not that I'm aware of it, outside of the swivel arm, of course. And then the
bicep swivel.
And the alternate heads that they were going to consider. But other than that, nobody's ever really dove into that.
We're going to consider being the operative words of that phrase. But I just always saw that Joe just expanded, because you can definitely see how you get from Colonel Hawk to what Duke looks like to General Hawk to on and on and on and on. What I really found interesting in that video from your channel is Battle Corps Rangers Hawk with that sweet mustache with that bunker.
Yeah.
He had a massive mustache.
I'm not sure if that was just a mock-up and or
I
what.
don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
kit
know.
bash figure or what, but
Yeah.
um,
But some of those figures were bangers, like that the Star Brigade or the Pretenders. What was it? The gung ho with the alien in his chest.
oh, replicators.
Yeah, the replicator. But the sculpt on that figure is fantastic. The helmet looks great. The camouflage on the pants. I'm like, that's a solid figure. Like I
Yeah,
understand that like some crap's going to burst out of his chest, but you don't have to make it burst out of his chest. And one thing that I think the replicators would have really had going for them is that you get those Ghostbusters figures with the fright features, and they look so exaggerated to accommodate the fright features, but the replicator Joes didn't. They just look like Joes.
yeah.
So I don't know. I really would have liked to have seen
And I
some
don't
more
know.
done with that.
Yeah, I don't know if those exist prototype wise or what. I mean, Ninja Commandos were, we knew about them. We didn't know. I
Road
mean, we
pig.
knew about. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know like if how many existed out there, but there was that recent find in the past year. But other than that, I would love to come across, some of the replicator stuff or more Battle Core Rangers because I've seen Battle Core Rangers. I've actually helped sell some of that stuff for somebody. The white resins and stuff like that. But I
So
haven't come
rad.
across for replicators. The only thing I've come across, I have a 2-to-1 hard copy of Snake Eyes, so I do have that for replicators. And then I know I helped sell some waxes. I don't think they have heads for them, but someone purchased some of the waxes for that. So other than that, I never saw like the mock-ups that they show in that commercial. Um, I'd only seen Polaroids of them, but I'd never seen the actual.
Yeah.
Um, and I doubt they went very far. That's probably as far as they went. So they probably got pitched, if I had to guess, back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Destroying molds and getting rid of
Well,
yeah mock-ups and whatnot. I know.
yeah,
Yeah. I gotta say though, that Destro, the more I would watch that video on your page, that Destro to me, it looks more and more and more like Red Jackal, like the Destro from Action Force. It just every time I would pause on it, I'm like, man, he just looks like Red Jackal. I guess because of the bright red on his entire torso. It just screams Red
yeah,
Jackal.
they're cool concepts,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I hope to feature that. I've gotten permission from the designer of that as well to feature. So hope to feature
That's
those
cool.
guys in number 14 or so.
Very cool. And thank you, Zazel, for reminding everybody. Please don't forget to hit the like button because Dan and I would both appreciate it, and so would the algorithm because it hates people. Adam House says hello. How you doing, Adam? Good to see you. David says everyone I've spoken with or interviewed couldn't remember why that happened. Okay. Yeah, I don't. I honestly do not know, but that would be cool. And then Adam says misspelt your name. Apologies. Typing with a bung hand. Misspelled. Oh, Zazel. Okay.
Oh,
And then Bo, what's up? Says Chad, who do you use for your collector's insurance?
I think it's called collector's insurance. The one if you Google it, it should come up. Toy insurance. I think it's literally called collector's insurance, if I recall,
Yeah,
the one I use.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It is. Actually, I used to have State Farm, and they had a thing in my insurance policy when I used to have State Farm where they would cover so much of a dollar value of collectibles as well. So it
that's
wasn't
cool.
like specifically collector's insurance, but under homeowner slash renters insurance, it was part of it. So it covers all like goods and wares and things like that, and collections and heirlooms and such.
That's neat.
Um, oh, and then Zazel's talking to Adam. Dale, I would have liked to have the Super Troopers and the Star Brigade imposters. Star Brigade are cool. Okay. And then Adam's just talking to Zazel. So they're just chatting with each other.
That's all
Um,
right.
Ninja Commando Sergeant Slaughter.
There you go.
And then Zazel says, I've said it before. It's a shame Sarge wasn't in the line long enough to become a ninja. He didn't need to be a ninja, dude. We've talked about this a million times. I
I
would
have a
like
cool
to.
prototype of Sarge's head, but on Road Pig's body. So for sizing of vehicles, they would sometimes kit bash. They'd use all the biggest parts of the Joes and they kit bash it into a figure to make sure that essentially that character could fit in any vehicle that was to come out or had come out. And
That's smart.
so Sergeant Slaughter's head's on it. I know the torso, the legs, and the crotch are all road pig. I'm assuming the arms are as well, but yeah, it's kind of funny to see just his head because of the hat, of course.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
campaign hat. Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah. And then Dale said would have liked to seen the Snake Eyes replicant. Done my own story where there's trying to act human even if the originals are around. Cool.
Yeah, there's a fun. I came across a Chris McLeod read it. I think it was JoeCon 18, but he read it down in like lobby, and it was like in a storyline for Star Brigade. So it's kind of introducing the Manimals and stuff like that. And there's actually like good Manimals, and from what I recall, and I think they were just about to announce. I think it talks about it at the very end, like the replicators, because they said they may not be who you think they are or something like that. So they introduced like War Dog and all that stuff. So it's kind of a cool little script per se. So I had him read it out, of course, at JoeFest and had some fun,
That's
or
cool.
JoeCon, I should say, and had some fun with that. So
very cool. And then Zazel says Dan's a cool guy. Hopefully we can all get together at JoeFest with Sarge.
Definitely, yeah. I've been trying to see if I can work with get Sarge's permission to interview him and feature some of his pages as far as him as a character and stuff like that. So that's hopefully going to happen. Trying to leave some page space for him for number 13, because number 14 the book's going to be more unproduced concepts, so it's going to be really 12 and 13. So
that'd be awesome.
Hopefully I can get him on board, and hopefully I can make sure I get him in there in number 13.
That man is the best brand ambassador they could ever have hoped for.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many fun stories about him and people meeting him and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it'd be fun to feature him in some of those stories.
I finally met him for the first time at Albuquerque Comic Con just a couple of months ago. So Zazel is close with his daughter Kelly, and I was talking with Zazel and Kelly about, oh yeah, I'm gonna, your dad's gonna be at Albuquerque Comic Con, and the ma'am and I are gonna go see him, and we're gonna be dressed up in our Cobra outfits. And I thought it was really sweet. So Kelly told her dad, like, hey, Chad and his wife are coming to see you, and they're in their Cobra outfits. And so, we're just walking around, and like at first we couldn't find him, and somebody's like, oh yeah, he's right there. He was like right around the corner, but he was like kind of tucked in that. He was like the very first one in like the autograph row. And we started walking up, and he was talking to this guy who was like our age, like a Sarge fan with his young kid. And we were just kind of hanging back, and he's like, Cobra, and so super.
He put you in a headlock?
No. He didn't do any of that. But we got some cool photos, where he's like giving us the finger and stuff. But
I think I saw those.
Yeah, totally rad guy. And then here's a cool question. So Patrick's asking, Dan, with all your vast knowledge and research, what figure or item do you personally wish they made the most but didn't? Is that a hard question?
Yes and no. So there's a figure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I wish had been made, right? But there's a figure called Stealth Fighter that Mark Pennington had done, and I mean, maybe it's just because the artwork is so beautiful that I'm kind of biased, but it's Bart Sears did this painting, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's I think it's watercolor. And I've been very fortunate. I had a color study of it. I had a color study of it for a while when I bought the original painting, but since then someone else I was helping another collector. He's like, hey, I got some things I'm looking to sell. Would you help me out? And I was like, sure. And he sent me a couple photos. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, you got that? So is the internal presentation art for this character. So I'll be featuring him in either 12 or 13. I'm still going to feature some unproduced stuff in those volumes, but then 14 will be kind of like whatever is left will be
Yeah.
featured in there. So I think he'll be number 12. So stealth fighter, I'd say, is figure wise. Vehicle wise, trying to think what I've come across. It's hard with vehicles because I feel like I like the transport vehicle. I think I featured it recently, the green one. I would have liked to seen it. It had like the tank on it, had the
Yeah.
moped on it. I would have liked
Yeah.
to seen that as a kid. I think it would have been a fun vehicle. I know it's just a truck with a trailer, but to kind of have something to haul your tanks around in vehicles, I think that would have been kind of a fun
And
vehicle.
Funrise kind of did something later. They did something almost like that later, where it's like a flatbed, almost like a deuce and a half with the trailer with their version of the M1 Abrams on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
Funrise did make one. It's that Funrise scale, so it's huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple other vehicles, but that's just the one that comes top of mind. I mean, Chad and I were talking about the Revenge. That would have been a fun one to kind of battle out. The Rolling Thunder is one of my favorites, so the Revenge was kind of it's arch nemesis, and was supposed to attack it. But yeah, those are some two of the favorites I'd say, off the top of my head right now. But there's so many cool concepts that I've
I
come
wanted to
across.
see them do the Cobra Aspid, the chopper.
Oh,
I really want to see
yeah.
them do the Cobra Aspid, and I've seen a lot of customs of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. I'm trying to think of what else. Um, I'm like looking around my room, all I see is products. So I'm like thinking, conceptual wise. Let me get back to you on that one, Patrick. I'll think more about it, but I think right now that's what sticks out to me. So
Yeah, the Revenge definitely for sure.
yeah, that'd been fun.
When was Dr. Link Talbot supposed to come out, Dan?
Oh, Adrian. He has a fascination with Dr. Link Talbot. So he's supposed to come out in 1975 before Real American Hero. You just didn't realize.
I was singing the Bullet Man jingle on our last Neon at Night, and Nick looks over at me and I'm like, "You don't know the Bullet Man jingle?" He's like,
I don't think I
"No."
know
I'm
the
like,
Bull Man jingle.
"Wait, it's just like Bullet Man, the human bullet." And he just looked at me weird, and I'm like, "Well, now you know the Bullet Man jingle. Like, it's in the commercial." So whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I
Yeah,
know
there's your
that one.
answer on Dr. Link Talbot. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Hi. I figure since we're yelling. Does anyone know how many versions of Duke there are in the G.I. Joe line of 3.75 O-ring figures?
A million.
Yeah. Isn't it 6? 7?
Well, you're talking about, I'm assuming versions, not counting like carded and mail away. You know what I mean, as far as that goes. But
Well, I
I
mean,
think
one's got a flag. One, I don't know. I guess
yeah.
that's
So
two
I don't.
different versions of Duke, but
Yeah. So you got 83. You got
you got the Battle Corps Duke.
Tiger Force.
You got Tiger Force, Battle Corps, Star Brigade. 6? I want to say 6. I don't know, dude. Go look on 3djoes.com. It'll tell you how many versions there are, Duke. I promise you.
It's crazy after 94. I mean, especially if you're counting all the stuff after 94, with the Valor versus Venom and G.I. Joe versus Cobra and
okay,
Spy Troops.
yeah.
So
But if we're
I
just
don't even
talking
know.
Real American Hero, I want to say it's 6.
6, yeah, because you had 93. You had a 93 one. Well, you had two. You had the desert camo one, and then you had the one where he's like in the tan and red. And then, like you
where
said,
he's
Star Brigade.
You got the one where he's riding the rocket launcher, Slim Pickens style.
Yes. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it is 6.
Yeah, you got the mail away, the carded. Yeah, I want to say 6, but if we're just talking O-ring 3.75 to include all those other post 94 Real American Hero, it's a bunch. There's a bunch. Yeah, like a lot. I gotta say, some of that, like Valor versus Venom, G.I. Joe versus Cobra, Spy Troops. There was a lot of cool stuff in there. The Dark Years had some gems, some serious gems. I've been getting kind of nuts on that lately.
Yeah, I have a full. You're talking about DTC. The Dark Years? Or are you talking about something else?
Just all that stuff, that 95 to
Oh,
2006 stuff.
gotcha. Okay,
Dark Years, yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. And then the Canuck says, hope to meet up with you guys at JoeFest. Enjoy a few drinks and cigars. By all means, brother. Absolutely. I will be there. I love to just talk to people. So please, by all means.
Free drinks, right? No.
I don't drink. But I just like people. I just like people and stuff. I like stuff. Dan, do you like stuff?
I like lots of stuff.
I don't know. It's just like, it's the thing on this channel. Do you like stuff? JLS Comics is here. What's up, dude? Good to see you.
Hey.
And then David Allen says, document your collections and comics on DVDs and DVDs. Yeah. Document all your collection. Yeah, for sure.
Outside of, and I, you know, it makes a good point. Outside of a hard drive, because one of the designers for years I bugged about, do you have these files? Do you have these files? So a lot of the later stuff, so Kurt Grown, and a lot of his stuff. And because I knew I had an Excel file he sent me back in 05 of some stuff he had. And so it's very low quality. And I was always asking, did you find anything? No, that hard drive crashed and blah, blah, blah. And then randomly, I think it was about a year ago almost, last June, he just randomly started, hey, go look at your WeTransfer files. And there's like 4 different emails from him. And it's all a lot of his artwork that he had found on a DVD that he had burned years prior. So he didn't even know he had them. He just came across them and was like, hey, look what I found. So that's really, that allowed the book series to kind of expand even further out and feature stuff that, I didn't know I was going to be able to feature. So,
yeah,
so
that's really cool. And then Will says, Nordplast did a line of military vehicles like that as well. Cool. David Allen, yes. Slaughter will be at JoeFest. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ghetto Fingered Gaming. What's up, dude? Says, greetings all. Hope everyone is well. Very well. Very, very swell. Thanks for being here. And then they're all kind of talking to each other. And then Adrian says, GI Link. Yo, Joe. Awesome job, both of you. Very cool. Patrick says, thanks, Dan. Will says, Duke 4 or 6. I want to say it's 6. I want to say. Don't trust me, though, because I'm an enthusiast. I'm not an expert. But just like going through it in my mind, through my mental Rolodex, I want to say it's 6. Will you have any deeper info on the character designs of the 1990 Walmart file cards like Stonewall Sam and the others? Look at
that. Not in the plans, but I've seen all the original.
No.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of the original artwork for it, like, full artwork of all those characters, not just on the file card. So I'm trying to think who had it or where I've seen it. I think there's one other unproduced character too, which I believe almost looked like a Target symbol. So it could have been like maybe for Target. I don't know. But something that, Kirk Wuzigi and I can always talk about too. But as far as featuring them, probably a lot of legality there, since you're featuring real people. Probably be complicated as well. Yeah. Especially like Sam Walton. I mean, it's like you'd have to go through the company and all that family, and who knows. So
because it's Sam Walton. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're gonna move on and get into, oh snap! Look at this, Dan. The ma'am's here. What's up, ma'am?
Hey.
That's my wife. So yeah, the ma'am.
She's joining us, right?
She is. She's joining us. I think she got out of work.
Nice.
So, hi, ma'am.
Nice
I love you. Please come home. And then David said Carson has all that info in his book about Stonewall Sam and stuff. That'd be cool. Did you, when we were at JoeFest last year, did you get to see and or hold that omnibus that he's working on?
Carson? I did see it. I don't know if I held it, but I did see it. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a crazy.
That thing is a brick. It's a brick. Yeah. It's massive. I mean, yeah. The ma'am and I walked up to him. He's like, oh, hey, Chad, here, hold this. And he just put it in my hands. I was like, good Lord, man. That thing
good
is
workout. Huge. Good workout with it. So
yeah. Yep. And then everybody's saying hi to the ma'am, because we all love the ma'am and she's rad. So when you work on these books, and we're going to kind of move along into the actual books.
Mm-hmm.
It's fully licensed by Hasbro, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of talked about this backstage before we went live. But what's the approval process for each volume? Like, do you just have a left and right limit, or is this something you can even talk about?
I mean, when I got licensed, I mean, I think 6 books were already done. So it's been a very simple process, honestly. Um, I have free reign as far as who I feature and what characters and stuff like that. So there's nothing, coming down like, hey, you can't, I mean, you can't do that or can't do that. Um, so, I mean, there's approval process. I mean, I'm waiting for my vendor to get up to date because apparently their form that they need to provide is outdated. It only lasts a year. So once that goes, I'll have hopefully approval by tomorrow or Tuesday. And then that will go straight to my printer. I'll get my proof hopefully by the end of the week or early next week, and then go to print soon. So, um, but yeah, as far as Hasbro goes, I mean, it's been a good working relationship. Um, I mean, really,
It's
the
good to hear.
process is I put the books together, I send it over to them. Very rarely are there any changes. I mean, maybe some copyright changes, just how it's listed, or
Sure.
whatever. But other than that, it's been a very seamless process. I think getting into it, they knew what the prior books looked like, so it wasn't like a shock or surprise of what the remaining books would look like. So, but yeah, it's been a very simple process in my eyes. I mean, as far as going through their approval. So, and the people I've worked with, I've had a couple different people outside of Michael Kelly's the main man over there, but some of the other people that are under him, as far as who I've worked with, have been great and always supportive and get back to me really quick. So, as well as
That's
him.
really cool.
So, mhm.
That's really cool. So volumes 9 and 10 were the most recent in your series, and then the
Yep,
the Zartan card, right? Obviously, we
yep.
already kind of showed that off and talked about that. And that's these suckers right here. So these volumes they just get better and better. I have to say, it's just every time
I
I get
appreciate.
them. And one thing I have to say to you, Dan, I don't know if I've told you this because you and I talk, we talk pretty regularly, actually. I never really said this to you. I don't believe so, but being an aficionado of the Kickstarter, I have to say that when your Kickstarters end, it's just like boom, books. Like I
Yeah,
just get these books so fast, and like a lot of these toy Kickstarters. Now, granted, it's a kind of a different animal,
different
but
process. Yeah,
these toy Kickstarters, like okay, the Kickstarter ended.
yeah, yeah. I
Like
mean,
2 years later, you get a toy, and you're like, oh, I forgot I bought that. But your
I mean,
books are like,
they're printed here in the U.S. They're printed here locally in Phoenix.
yep,
So, I mean, I have a lot of, I can go down if there's things that need to be changed. I can make them quickly and go see it in person. So, I'm very fortunate there. Now, is it more costly? Yeah, I mean, it is more costly, and that's why
sure,
the price point is where it's at. Is because they are made in the U.S. and they are printed here. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I always wonder, you know, is the next one going to top the other? And I guess it's not really meant to top the previous volume because it's all new concepts, right? So I get asked that a lot, like, well, what's different in this volume than this volume? They're all different imagery, all different concepts, all different uh, history facts, the process, when I walk people through the process of the toys and making them. Um, so I think sometimes people get confused on editions versus volumes because I think we're used to editions with books. But
right.
these are, volume series. And I did a lot of research when I first started because I was like, what do I call these? And so, kind of going down the path of a volume series, which was never my intention. I mean, again, I originally thought 2 books, 250 pages each, and be done. That was my original idea way back when. But I'm glad
Right.
I didn't do that because I would have had missed out a lot of stuff. And so I've been very fortunate with what's come about. And there's stuff that I didn't feature in some of the earlier volumes that maybe someday. Whoever asked the question earlier, I apologize, I don't remember. With a hard cover, maybe I redo a couple pages and include some of that stuff. We'll see. But
Yeah. Very cool. And my buddy Jeremy Jernigan, he's here from Authority Figure and 3POA Loose But Complete, another active duty Army guy. So
Jeremy,
good to have
thanks
you
for
here,
your
Jeremy.
service.
Thanks for being here, man. And David says it's going to be much bigger now, Chad. You spoke with Carson, you know. Yeah, I know. That book is ridiculous. It just keeps getting bigger, but that's it. It's done now. So
Yeah.
very cool. So and then this is the current one that's the Kickstarter's about to end for this one now, correct?
Yeah.
Monday?
Tomorrow. Yeah. So I checked 33 hours a few hours ago. So I think I do it midnight tomorrow night. So normally I was going to do it on a Sunday, but you never know. People have plans or busy on the weekends. So
Yep.
I figured I'd give it one more day, and maybe someone's bored at work and they're checking it out there. You should never check things at work, but you should check this out.
I scored some sweet toys today at work on the old eBay. I was snipe bidding some suckers. But for anybody hanging out with us tonight, and again, I can't thank you all for hanging out with me and Dan. I just put the link to the Kickstarter in the chat. If you haven't gotten in on these books, please support Dan, support this volume series, and go back this freaking book. Because looking at what's in volume 11, and I specifically wanted to put this in here because I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, when they think about, okay, well, it's a volume book series, so volume 1 is 1982 and volume 3 is not. No, that's not the case at all. So each volume covers the whole gamut of a real American hero, and I think that's awesome. So everybody who's hanging out with us, you can see right here. So volume 11, you've got Grand Slam from 82, but then you've got Cutter and the Whale. You've got, the Stinger, Vamp 2, Footloose, Wetsuit, on and on and on. Like, I'm sure you all know how to read, but you can see where it gets into like Star Brigade, Armor Tech, Rock and Roll. And then it just kind of goes further and further. And then there's that sweet unreleased stuff. Unreleased Star Brigade, Manimals, Warwolf, right? The Cobra Wedge. Oh, yeah. So every time I get a new volume, I got to tell you, the very first thing I do is I go to the back. I always go to the unreleased stuff first, because every panel has information that I didn't know. And I love learning that stuff about these figures and the characters and the process of how they were designed. But the unreleased stuff, it's just every page blows me away. So I always go to the unreleased first, and then I go back to the front of the book and work my way through it.
So I think that's why you'll enjoy the last one. And again, I didn't know how I was going to sprinkle in the unreleased, and that's when I was building it out, I think, I'm 99% sure I have enough to do the full book. Like I said, it could be bigger. It's all about layouts. It's all about how I lay them out. But
Right.
I think the last book, I think it'd be good to on a bang. Volume. Night Viper's still coming. Snake Eyes version 2 still coming. The Defiant was one of those projects or vehicles or playsets, however you want to label it, is intimidating, because I knew how many people were involved. That, just a few months ago, I held a Zoom meeting with about 5 or 6 different people who worked on it. And so it's fun to kind of finally get that written, because that's one of the things I hadn't written about, because I was just like overwhelmed with what was involved in it. But it actually, I think, will read well, and the guys have been great, and it's fun to get them together. That's what I always enjoy doing. That's why I like the podcast, and I need to do it, because I realize every time I'm in book mode, I start interviewing people, get on things, and so many different people have stories. People that you guarantee you have not even heard their names, but they have such a rich history of the brand, like family members work there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I want to get out there and preserve that information for collectors and just for people interested in Joe. But yeah, so there's some good stuff coming still outside of what's shown here, of course. So
yeah. I just kind of wanted to throw that up there. It's like,
No.
it's like a 32 flavors kind of a thing, and I know a lot of people don't really understand how the volumes are structured if they've never seen them. And then Adam,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, some people have even shared, like, normally they are 82 to 85, 86 guys. or gals, and because they've seen some of this later stuff, they've actually appreciated some of it and have been turned on to it. Just seeing some of the later stuff where normally they would never have even bother with it if it had been built, like you said, chronological order.
Yeah.
So
Well, even on my Neon at Night show, every episode, someone in the chat says, "I didn't know about this figure. I didn't know about this figure. I never saw this vehicle before. What is that? I'm gonna go buy it right now." And people in the chat during the episode will be like, "Oh, I just picked him up."
snagged it on eBay or
So they're
something.
like they're shopping as we're like showing these figures, and I think it's awesome to just kind of share that love of stuff.
For sure.
Adam here is asking, Dan, is there anything that you've been forced to omit from the series that you would have liked to include but couldn't for whatever reason? And then I'm going to caveat on the end of that. Can you even answer that question?
I don't think anything's been omitted that I can't. There's a couple things I'd like to add to the future series, which I need to figure out the legalities of it with Rocky and the fridge and and then Sarge. So live people stuff, I think it kind of gets a little shaky there, but no, I mean, great question, by the way. Not that I
Because the
can think
Rocky
of.
concepts are out there. They're out there.
Oh yeah, and I have some cool stuff for Rocky as well I could share. So it's
I
just
bet you do.
it comes down to just, and I think and I gotta check with them again just to revisit it, but um, just to make sure that's something I could feature. So
That's cool. That's a good question. Thanks, Adam.
yeah, it's a
And
great
then
question.
Will says, "How about the Cobra Podium as a Kickstarter unlock?"
Cobra Podium.
I don't know, like the Cobra Commander's podium. I don't know.
Yeah, most of my stuff I can do is printed. I don't do anything 3D or anything like that. So, but I do
I don't know if that was
the page
more in
prints.
regard to talking about Carson's
Oh, yeah, I
omnibus.
don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't
And
know.
then Samuel says, "I bought the Megaforce DVD while watching Chad's show, where the good guys always win, even in the '80s." Yeah, that's right. He did. You did, Samuel. Yeah, we were talking about Megaforce in one stream, and he was like, "And I bought Megaforce, which is a
That's
freaking
fun.
awesome movie." Pericles says Kickstarter's at just over 22,000. Thanks for
Awesome.
that. Very
Thank
cool.
you for that.
So when you structure each volume, I know we've kind of danced around it. So you have page spreads, you got figures, vehicles, play sets, unreleased, never produced. Like, how do you decide how to structure each volume? Do you have like a roadmap? Has it been laid out?
I just throw all the stuff in a hat and I just pull names. It's
You're
very
like, no, did
strategic.
him, did
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
he's already released.
Yeah.
You know what? I went back and forth early on, but with the first book, I really wanted to make sure I recognized as many people on the brand as possible.
Right.
So in order to do that, I knew I had to show 82 to 94, 95, right? I knew I had to do that in order to showcase everybody as best as I could when it came to the design part. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I've been able to showcase people who I've met over the series, the time the series has been out. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to establish those relationships and share their stories as well. But yeah, that's kind of where the original concept came, was just if it was a one and done type of shot, at least I came through with my word, because that was one of the challenges up front, where people would talk to other people about doing books and it never came to fruition. And got a lot of buy-in, and so I wanted to make sure I did that. So from there, it really just took off. But I have a somewhat formula. We all have our favorites, and your favorite maybe, what I consider. I have like my A-listers, my B-listers, and then my C's and so forth. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, but that doesn't mean that my B-lister or even C-lister is not your A-lister. So I think that's the great thing about it.
Yeah.
But
I,
I
I
mean, I
hate
think it
Big
was a
Boa
popular.
and everybody knows it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think he's more a B-lister, as far
Yeah,
as.
it's just a joke, but yeah, I can't
Oh,
stand Big Boa.
oh, well, I like Big Bo. So,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
one of my
that's cool.
faves. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the science behind it, I guess, is I want to make sure people are happy and are excited. And, in volume two, I did a little bit more with featuring a lot of key characters. which I learned from because again, I'd only at that time expected 8 books, so I didn't
Right.
think it was a big deal. But now spreading it out as long as I have, there's a couple characters I wish I would have just spread out a little bit more. I think that one has Cobra Commander, Cobra Officer, Cobra Soldier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
82, 83 are getting pretty slim.
yeah. I think this is the last book. Grand Slam, I think, is it. I think he wraps up all the 82 characters. So the next one I'll start off with Thunder and the Slugger, and then go forward
Mm.
to Whales. I believe in the Whales in the next one. I believe with Cutter. Oh, no, Cutter and Whales in this one. Sorry. Trying to think who else is in the next one. I think Night Viper's in the next one. Like I said, I've been moving a couple things around, but um, trying to think of General. I believe is in the next one.
Mm. I just
Um,
bought one of those.
I saw that. So yeah, so I had some fun things on that. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of volume 12. I'm just they all because I was working on them at the same time.
Right.
They
Right.
kind of go all together. So I mean, at least I could see your list here and what's coming. But yeah, I'm
I
excited
can't
to
wait to see
get
the
this one out.
thunderclap. I can't wait to see that.
I mean, for that, I mean, I have the package art primarily is what I have. I don't have I don't have any preliminaries, unfortunately, for that. But I did for the longest time. I didn't. I guess I thought I knew who did it, but it actually turned out to be Greg Bernstein who designed that. So I did get a good interview with him and shared out some of his thoughts and where it kind of came from. So,
Yeah.
um, so some of the stuff I don't have a lot of preliminaries. I try to feature at least the package art and then maybe a little bit more history if I can about
Right.
a particular character or whatnot, especially some of the later stuff like 94. I just don't have a lot in that sense. So I'll try to feature like something from the sculpture sheet or whatever, because there are some interesting tidbits of history that I'll hear from people. So I
Yep.
want to make sure it's shared out. But
The spread on the Rolling Thunder, because I love the Rolling Thunder.
it's one of my faves.
I how I came about having two of them is one of my like kind of long-winded stories, and why I made one. I have a complete Rolling Thunder that I just completely like took apart and redid as Night Force, because when I got it,
That's
it
cool.
was broken.
Wow.
And so like, but I love the Rolling Thunder. I didn't have it as a kid because I was kind of already on my way out. I was,
Mhm.
hitting those teen years. But it's one of those toys as an adult collector that I grew to love more and more and more. And then once I got a hold of it, and then when I got your volume with it, I was like, "Oh, that is so it's so fantastic to just see the original designs of it."
Yeah, it's
And
beautiful. It's one of my faves.
and being a military guy, so I have a Hawk missile system outside of my office, which, is the MMS, and
Hmm.
I have what the real mobile radar station that is the Coastal Defender outside of my office. And over here at the National Nuclear Science Museum, they have a real life RPV, a real life thunderclap, and things like that. And so I see them all the time, and I try to chronicle them, like
That's
that
cool.
whole IRL thing, what they really, really look like. Because a real MMS is gigantic, is a huge, huge machine.
Yeah.
Really quick. So Ritz Murphy just popped in to say, "What's up, Chad and Dan? Coming in late, gonna catch a replay." Well, either way, thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Matthew Matson said, "I purchased Megaforce and Rad for future review streams. I haven't seen those movies in decades. They're great. Yeah, they're great movies." And then Patrick says, "I Googled twice already tonight. Chad, that Soundwave is awesome." Yeah, if you're talking about the masterpiece, Soundwave, he's fantastic. He comes with Megatron. I love him. Uh, and the last episode I was in, I had to leave to watch Resolute. Yeah, because Dom from Toy Domination and we were talking about JoeFest and Resolute at the same time.
Yeah, Resolute is a
Uh,
good series.
yeah. And then Will says, "I don't like Big Boa and I don't like Lieutenant Matt Damon Falcon." But whatever. Yep. David says, "Another slipcase, please, Dan."
That may be in the works for the last book. So again,
Yeah.
that's where it came down to what I was going to finish at, because the printer I was going to do, I'm using my book printer potentially this round. versus I used a third party last time. I mean, they're all third parties, but I used someone I found online, and I talked to my printer, and she's like, "What do you think? It's going to be 12?" I'm like, "I don't know." And thank goodness I didn't, because that would have been a little awkward. So the hope is maybe I'll have something designed by the 14th, and then maybe it'll be a stretch goal or something like that. We'll see. My hope is to have a little bit um, thicker, stronger, to hold all the books versus the one I did before is good. I mean, I'm not. I mean, it is what it was. It was, kind of a free giveaway for that volume 4.
Yeah.
But I really want something that's going to last people, because I've seen some of the ones I've had. I mean, they last, but if you throw it around a little bit, it can get damaged pretty easily. So I want something that's going to be a little bit better quality is my goal. So we shall
A
see.
couple of my volumes look like college textbooks, where you could tell that I like folded it back, which I probably shouldn't have done. But if I have to lay a panel out, I fold it around.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. But I just have the rest of them kind of standing up here. And then just for posterity, Pericles doesn't see Matt Damon, sees Jim Caviezel. Yep. Which, yeah, I could see that as well. So when you're actually coming up, oh God, look at this. We're going to talk on this for a second. How much research is involved in each volume? Does that vary?
You mean hours or what?
Yeah.
I mean, hours. Yeah. I mean, lots of interviews with people. Lots of interviews. A lot of the interviews have been done back in 13, 14. So I was very fortunate to do a lot of interviews back then and write about them. But there are times where new stuff comes about, or I'll have to go bug somebody because I'm like, did we ever talk about this? Or who designed this? Even the other day I was talking to someone, and I thought someone else designed the Arctic Blast, and they said, no, I think Dave Kunitz did it. And I reached out to him. He's like, oh yeah, I did that. So even me, I'm learning, like, some vehicles, I don't realize who actually designed them. So, but there's a lot of research. I have a lot of memos I comb through. What I had done until recently, once I know, like, okay, volume 7 is going to have these characters, I only research, I look for those characters' names or those vehicles that are going to be featured, because I wanted to keep it exciting for myself. I didn't want to look at every single memo and learn every little thing. Number one, I wouldn't memorize it. And number two, I think I'd lose some of that drive. So the last 3, like 11, 12, 13, for sure, I was looking at all memos there. So again, I had to have a better idea of the layouts and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hours upon hours. So there's those memos. There's the original dossiers. I usually will compare what Larry had written and compare it to the final file card. So point out those differences. And then just trying to be creative with, the stuff I get from interviews, then, make it interesting to the reader. But yeah, it's a lot of research, which I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy it. That's what's fun about the whole project. So
very cool. And then for everybody hanging out with us, look at how gorgeous that is. When you sent me this, and you had posted this too.
Yeah, I did post this one as a teaser for, I think, once we hit 15K, I think I did it.
Yeah, so it was on Kickstarter, and then I think you put it on social media too. And
yeah,
I remember I specifically asked you when I was like, "Hey, can I get these panels?" And I was like, "Storm Shadow version 2." I didn't want to just take it off the Kickstarter, but
no, I really
it's so gorgeous.
It's decent quality too.
But this, to me, because Storm Shadow version 2 is very iconic, and a lot of people don't like to use that word, but he's actually iconic, and the way these panels are laid out, it's so gorgeous. And I'm going to switch gears for a second, because I don't know if you saw this question from Adam, and that's why I was sort of raising my eyes. Dan, with the recent success of Classified line, I would argue that, actually, and the flop of the Snake Eyes film, I won't argue that. What do you think of the news of a Joe film reboot? I did a video on that. And what would you like to see Paramount do with it?
I've read a little bit about that, Michael Keaton or whatever, right?
As Joe Colton, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I talked to some people in the past about this, people were at Hasbro at that time, just about the movie series itself. This is before Snake Eyes. but like really honing in and doing something similar to Marvel, where you do go do the history of a character, right? So I mean, the Snake Eyes, I think what they were trying to do with it, they're trying to have that kind of that kickoff as far as a character type of, like Iron Man was the kickoff for the whole Marvel series, right? But I mean, not showing his face the entire movie, I don't think was the right way to go. Me personally, I would love to see. I always picture like an origins film of Cobra. Like we always see Cobra Commander, but why does this guy hate the world? Why does he want to take over the world? So I'd like to see them, if they're going to reboot it, start with a Cobra Commander origins movie, and I always remember that movie. Michael Douglas is in it. I always forget the name of it, where he goes berserk. He just has a bad day at work and he just
Falling
goes
down.
nuts. Yes.
You
So almost
forgot
like a
the briefcase. Yeah, I love that
so
movie.
like a falling down / Joker type of movie. I mean, I think it might be a little bit darker, but if they could show a Cobra Commander origins movie and just sprinkle in some of the other characters and how they kind of play into the universe, I think it could be successful. You know, I don't know. We'll have to see, I guess, what they're up to, and I don't work for any of them, so I don't know. I had no input, unfortunately, but that's where I would go. I would go more an origins film, like how did this Cobra organization come about and why? And so there, I think it needs to. Sorry, I'm like itching my nose. I think it's important to showcase that, because I think too often we just kind of, oh, here's Cobra. Everybody knows who Cobra is, but why not show why Cobra is? Why did it become what it is? So hope that answers your question. A little
Yeah.
long-winded.
And then Jim Largo's got to run because he's got to go over to Hella Dope because they're streaming now, and I'm kind of
Oh,
running
cool.
into them. But
Thanks
thanks for
for
coming,
coming.
Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were
Jeff
on
Moore
for a
says,
while.
if you make a Snake Eyes origins movie, you should get the backstory of Snake Eyes correct. The story in that movie was all sorts of wrong. Yeah. Will, Cobra Origins, the journey of the commander, and then Jeff Butler. Where do you see the Joe Brent overall in 5 years? Ooh, we'll hold on to that for a second. I'm gonna pause there for 1 second. Everybody has their own opinions. Opinions make the world go round, and I think it keeps the world from being boring. But all I know is that Rise of Cobra made 300 million. Retaliation made about 400 million. They were going in the right direction. And then GI Joe 3, like they had stuff for GI Joe 3. We all know that. And then they just canned it, did nothing for a long time. And then that origin movie, it's just my opinion. I know a lot of people don't always share my opinions, but that movie hurt GI Joe more than if you just didn't make it. They could have just not made that movie, and it wouldn't have hurt the brand as bad as making the movie and losing money. I don't know. I personally think that Joe is a team, so doing some kind of like Avengers thing doesn't work for team movies because they're a military unit, right? You don't have individuals in a military unit. And just do a freaking period piece. Set it in a Cold War, like, because then you can include like October Guard and things like that. And in my mind, I always saw like a healthy GI Joe movie universe where like maybe there's like a little Easter egg where they talk about like, oh yeah, we got to go do this mission and like
Yeah, like a
somewhere
mission
rural
driven,
UK, like so we're gonna call the
like a
freaking
special
action force.
missions, like take the special missions and make the movies
Yeah.
from that.
Or like that TV show, The Unit, where you could
Yeah,
roll in different characters depending on your operating environment. Like you're going to go do something in the Arctic, so hey, we got to call in Snow Job and Blizzard and
exactly.
these guys, and here's the Snowcat, and then the next one you're like down in the tropics somewhere, and there's this guy and that guy, and
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I think mixing it up. Yeah, yeah. I mean, doing those types of movies too. But again, I do wholeheartedly think doing a Cobra movie, it'd be fun to see the origins and then expand it out, because now you know who this organization is, why they hate the world, and why they want to take over, and then you can do that sprinkling of all over the world. They do these different missions and try to take over. So
yeah.
we'll
And
see.
then Adam says, great answer. I personally think Keaton would own his Cobra Commander. Yeah. Mhm. I liked what they did with him in the second movie in Retaliation. I liked the commander in the second one.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, he's more
you could tell
traditional.
that guy, he was really trying to, I don't want to say fix, but redirect what had happened with the first movie. And it had a lot of the Sunbow flair, because last time we saw Storm Shadow, like, he was impaled and he went down in the frigid water, and then the next time you see him, there's no explanation. It's just like, here I am. Like they just completely ignored it. And then Will says, yeah, a mask setup. Mask would be cool. But let me go back to Jeff's question. Where do you see the G.I. Joe brand overall in 5 years?
Me, I think classified is going to continue. I think the 6-inch line is going to continue. I don't know what's going to happen to 3 and 3/4 inch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the brand's going to be in the next couple years. I mean, it's definitely catered towards collectors, as we know. I would love to see. I mean, I would have loved for my son to have had his own GI Joe world and universe, but yeah, it didn't happen, unfortunately. Really, especially when he's born. I think Retaliation, I think, came out, but he's too young at that point when he's born. By the time he was old enough to play, really, I think the 50th anniversary stuff was coming out, and that's about it. And it's hard to come by, and he had played with other things, which is fine. But I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know where the brand's going to be in 5 years. I mean, I'll be over 50 at that point myself. So,
Yep.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Wish I had an answer.
And that's kind of the thing. So we have been talking all this show about, there are so many different iterations of G.I. Joe. It's not just a real American hero. It's not just, the original 12-inch stuff. It's not Adventure Team stuff. It's not Joe versus Cobra or Valor versus Venom or Classified or any of that stuff. There's so much G.I. Joe that you can love Joe and find what speaks to you and what you like and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see some introduction to new characters and stuff. And that's what I think to have a little bit of uptick. So
yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with that. IDW run alone is 300 issues. Like, you can get away from a ninth Snake Eyes or a sixth Roadblock. I mean, you could get away from that kind of stuff. Whatever. So let's look at some more panels. So we got Storm Shadow version 2, which is amazing. And then the Headquarters Command Center.
Says in the previous volume, yep.
Yeah, blows me away just looking at this stuff. Like, all the ideas for it, the designs, and you just read people's notes. It's all just fantastic stuff. And then I asked you specifically to put the Baroness in here because, right, in the Finest Costume Club, that's my wife's main. That's her main costume, and I've always loved the Baroness. This year for Cobra Convergence 7, that Hooded Cobra Commander 788 puts on, I'm going to discuss the Baroness because it's all about espionage and stuff like that. So I really wanted to get into your Baroness panels. And this was from volume 3. Yes?
I think
3?
so, yeah, volume 3.
I think it was volume 3. Brandon, thank you so much. So Brandon sends a $20 super chat, man. Thank you so much. If Mario Brothers can own the box office as an animated film, so could an animated G.I. Joe film. I personally can't buy into Hollywood actors portraying the characters of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I can see that. And Brandon, thank you again so much. And I have to say that I think part of the reason why Super Mario Brothers did so well is Nintendo actually stepped in when they saw the script, and they were like, no, you're going to change this, and that. So if you follow how the movie came about and how it changed after the script was written and approved, his name's escaping me. I was just thinking about him earlier. The guy who designed Mario.
I'll have it.
Miguero. Yeah, I don't know. The Japanese guy who designed Mario. Like, he stepped in and he said, no, you got to change this, and it's got to be about this and this, that, and the other thing. And originally they wanted the movie to be about Princess Peach and how Mario was like her sidekick. And then they're like, no, we're not going to do that. So yeah, they kind of steered that away. But thank you so much, Brandon. Really appreciate it. And then Brandon says, off topic. Sorry, I just got here. That's okay. Do not apologize. And thank you. So that's right. Shigeru Miyamoto. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Shigeru Miyamoto. Very cool. So yeah, Shigeru something. It's Miyamoto. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, the Baroness panels are near and dear to my heart. But all this stuff is just gold, and then there's Scarlet right there. So kind of goes into the
Yeah,
whole
that's one of
Scarlet
the
thing.
pages. I think she's there 4 or 6 pages, I believe.
I know she's at least 4. A lot of these are at least 4,
Yeah, some
especially
of these.
like
Yeah,
the headquarters and Rolling Thunder and things like that. Yeah, I know. I don't want to pull the book out and just start digging through pages, but I know for a fact she's at least 4 because we talked about the helmet.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I know there's at least 4, I think, on her. I think she is 6 because I think the second page spread is preliminary designs, then the last page is showing her the 2-up and some other stuff. So I think she is 6 actually. Now, Tom, thinking about it.
I'm going to say you're
Just,
correct because they're your books. So yes, we're
yeah, I
just
think
going to
it's
go
6.
with that.
I
Yes,
think so.
6 pages. And so Baroness almost got a Cobra diadem instead of glasses. Baroness went through a lot of different designs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why these books are so awesome, Pericles, because I mean, look at that. Just the amount of information that you get. I can't really hover over slides because it's not on a shared screen. It's actually embedded. Otherwise, I would. But when you look at the 3 drawings right down the center, those are all Ron, right?
Yeah.
That looks like his signature. Oh, I got a hand inked Baroness from Ron this past year at
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah,
got
he's
a
done some beautiful commissions.
oh yeah. I got one from him, and I'm sure you saw him when he was at his table, just that stark red Cobra logo with just his signature under it. And I love that thing so much. But yeah, that's the designs that the Baroness went through. Very cool. Scarlet, again, so we talked about that. And look at that knife. That knife is gigantic. Yeah, it's huge. Um, this is what I was talking about earlier. The original designs of the Rolling Thunder, and it actually talks about the aliens APC and how that
Yeah.
how that sort of
Inspired,
tied
yeah.
into the inspired the design of the Rolling Thunder, which I thought was very interesting because when I look at the aliens APC, I think more of the Joe Rhino,
Yeah, I do.
the
Yeah.
modern Rhino than I do the Rolling Thunder when I look at that. But it was really cool to read that, just to see how they came up with how things slid and how they folded open and how the missiles fit into the design of the vehicle. Yeah, it's totally cool.
And that's what's fun is hearing these guys talk about it and excuse me, and original concepts and that's what I like to share out is where these ideas came from. A lot of these guys are historians themselves and
Yeah.
especially World War II and just pop culture bringing it in, into the toys. So that's
Yep.
another fun aspect of the books.
When Jay Bartlett and I this past Friday, so what, 2 days ago, this past Friday, so a whole whopping 2 days ago, while we were discussing and we were kind of grading 1983 vehicles. And so he would ask me like, "Well, you're a military guy, like, so take the Whirlwind twin battle gun." And he's like, "Is this a real piece of equipment?" I'm like, "Well, yes, but no, because it's a cross between this kind of anti-aircraft gun and this kind of anti-aircraft gun, but neither one of them have wheels that fold under. They both just have legs that come down and sort of brace it. But the guns are like the GAU-8 Avenger off of the A-10 Warthog, and it's all just kind of smashed together. And how most of the Joe vehicles and the smaller price point things like the Whirlwind twin battle gun or the HAL or things like that aren't real designs. But the
Yeah, they're
MMS is.
inspired by them.
Yeah, the MMS is. I mean, aside from the little command console and the
Yeah.
command wire, that's not accurate. But
Mhm.
when you
Yeah, a
get
lot
into
of
like the
vehicles
Sky
inspiration.
Striker, the Sky Striker's pretty straightforward. The
Yeah.
Dragonfly is 90% straightforward, but most of
Yeah.
these vehicles are, the Rolling
As the
Thunder's like,
line,
yeah,
yeah, as it grew, the imagination had to come into a lot of play,
yeah. And
and
it's very cool to read everything in your books about how they came about the designs. And then when you kind of look into, well, it's partly this and it's partly that, and it's inspired by this, but it
Mhm.
has to have playability. It has to be toyetic. And it's
For
very
sure.
cool to just dive into all this history, and a lot of that is thanks to your books. And then Patrick says graphics, layouts, and overall design really pops off the page, looks alive, and really draws you in. Beautiful work, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Patrick, because yeah. And then here's my dude. I know a lot of people, Serpentor, he's a little out there, but I love him. I just, 85, 86 is when I was completely drinking that Kool-Aid. I was 100% engulfed by 86. And I love Serpentor. I love him to death.
And that show, I think he's another 6-pager, but I think the first 2 pages are a feature of him, an entirely different look than what we got. So if you want to see something very unique about Serpentor, and then in the end of that volume, I think it's 9, I feature Pythona and another character called the High Priest, which were all tied into Serpentor.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but yeah, Serpentor is a lot of color studies. I think I shown on the 3rd page. So you can kind of see different, again, if you're a customizer or just want to see some different variants, that black one that I think that was put out, 2000 or 2001. Maybe they pulled inspiration from the original color study. I have no idea if they had access to it, but they at least did that. So
Desert Force, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much cool stuff. Where's my volume?
That's a fun one.
I don't know where my volume 9 is. I think it's right here. Volume 9. So yeah, I was actually just looking at, so here's the Pythona designs that you were talking about. Insane how they went through that. And this is the guy you were talking about right here, High Priest.
Yep.
I was just reading this the other day while I was getting ready for our show. Even though I had read it before, I like to kind of bone up on it. But all of these different designs on this page, they're just insane. And some of them you're like, that kind of looks like an Emperor's Royal Guard a little bit. But some of these are just fantastic, like Desert Rat, right, from Action Force. Yeah, the Desert Rat in there, and then there's just incredible stuff in these books, and I could just show page after page after page, and it would never get old. But and then Brandon says, respect the Friday night tier list on versus quality interactive entertainment. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. And then apparently I gave Will an 80s flashback because now he's singing the Silverhawks intro. Very cool. Which it's a good intro. You got to give it to it. What is Rankin Bass, right? Silverhawks, Thunderhawks, or Thundercats. That was all Rankin Bass. Brandon R says Serpentor is amazing. 86 was my favorite year. 86 was G.I. Joe's biggest year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you, and it's just personal opinion, I'm just asking your opinion entirely. Do you think that 86 was huge because it came off of 85? Or do you think that 86 was huge because of 86?
I'm trying to think of all the different things. I think it's a combo of both. I think the cartoon had been established by that point, right?
Yep.
So I think it's a combination of both. I mean, you had a lot of key characters. You had Wetsuit and Leatherneck, and if I think of the cartoon, a lot of those guys play key roles in
the
series.
Refreshes.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a mixture. I mean, the whole mini series on Serpentor and how he came to be, and Sergeant Slaughter as well.
That 5-parter is no joke.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that just kind of helped with the sales of the brand, overall. So, but I'm sure it's a little combination of both. I mean, when you think of the cartoon and who's featured more often than not, I think you see a lot of more 86 characters and even some 85s.
Yeah.
Not always, but in several. So,
I did a who wore it better, like a this or that kind of a thing where, you talk about, specific roles within the Joe team, how they got refreshed, Blowtorch got replaced, Breaker got replaced. Like when I look at Breaker versus Dial Tone, I don't even see an argument there. Like I love Dial Tone. I love him.
Yeah,
and I like Breaker. I really do. But you put Breaker and Dial Tone next to each other, it's two separate flavors. But,
Yeah.
yeah. And, you know, a lot of those 85, 86 characters went on to be really, really, really big. And then Samuel says, I picked up Classified Serpentor at a toy show in Hickory, North Carolina a couple weekends ago. Pretty stoked with him. Very cool. Do you have him, Dan?
I do have them. I haven't opened them yet, but I do have them. So I want to at some point soon. I know.
I don't have it.
No,
Even though I love Serpentor, and I will say, when I saw that reveal, like, I don't just crap on everything classified. Like, if I think that, you know, they're just opinions. If I think that they nailed something, I will definitely say, yeah, you nailed that. They nailed that.
Yeah.
The Haslab His Tank, they nailed it. Now, if they made it with interchangeable cockpits like Skeletron did with the RoboSkull Mark II, I'd have bought several of them. But it was all 6-inch specifically for 6-inch, so I just whatever. But the value's there, and I think the sculpt on that Serpentor is fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Really cool. But they were like, oh, well, the air chariot, the snake's head does this. And I'm like, yeah, it did that on a modern 4-inch one too. Like, it's not like it's a big deal. You know, they're like, oh, look, the His Tank has a ramp that comes down. I was like, so did the Sigma 6 His Tank. Like, I don't, all right, whatever. It's still cool though. And then Brandon says, Classified Serpentor is a great piece. Okay. Matthew says, I got prints on all the Serpentor pages. Cool. Very cool.
He's talking about the prints I offer in a Kickstarter. You can buy prints of the pages, the page spreads. So if you want to frame them or put them in a shadow box or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Pericles says, still not overly fond of the Sunbow version of Serpentor, more of a fan of the comics version. I will agree with that because in the comics version, they use Storm Shadow's DNA. He's definitely a little more severe.
Just so
did you? Did they die?
Yeah, I probably need to run here shortly.
Yeah, we're getting there. And then Adam says, Dan, who's your least favorite figure, but you still had to write about him? Ooh.
Can't ask me those types of questions. Come on now. Least favorite character
that you still had to write about in your books. Is it Ice Cream Soldier? It's Ice Cream Soldier, isn't it?
Well, I don't have much on Ice Cream Soldier, unfortunately. I'm trying to think of who. I'm thinking of what other people may not like Skidmark. I think actually Skidmark's cool, very cool if you see the original colors. I can't think of anybody right now that is like, ugh. I mean, as a kid, Crazy Legs wasn't a favorite of mine. But if you look at the artwork I present, it's actually a pretty cool rendering of Crazy Legs. Nothing comes to mind right now. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the characters behind me.
That's a lot. Yeah,
it's a lot. I'm trying to think of
even says he's even laughing. He's like, I like tough questions. Those are good questions. They really are.
They are. Yeah. I mean, nothing. I just enjoy. I mean, there's some. Like, I don't think I'm going to do the Road Toad, for example. I don't really have anything on it. I don't think it's something I really wasn't like a favorite of mine. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody who I just was like, nothing sticks out right now. But good question. I guess I can think about that later and get back to you.
That's cool. Like, you're a super aficionado because if he asked me that question, who's your least favorite figure, I'd rattle off like 10 real quick. And then David says Mark and Ron have both said they got to go to military bases in Washington, D.C. for military presentations for their inspiration. They were strolling around a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, and they were getting like the non-classified stuff of like blueprints and design specs and all that for the flag. And
the whole team would go down there. I have a black and white photo of them at one of the visits. But that's where they did a lot of research, not only museums but bases and stuff, like you said. So
yeah, absolutely. And then like even Stan Winston and all those guys, Stan Weston, when they were trying to come up with the designs for the original G.I. Joe, they went down to the local like National Guard armory, and some general or like a colonel was like, here's all these weapons. Like, you could
I remember that. I saw a documentary of that. So
yeah. And then Brandon says Classified Serpentor is worth opening. I held off, but no regrets. Cool. We're just going to get through these. And then Demgut says, I grabbed Zartan and Major Blood. Adam with the tough questions. Woodman, thanks again, Dan, for all the hard work put into these amazing books. And thanks, Chad, for another great live.
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Yeah, thank you very much. And then Adam says, yeah, Road Toad can kick rocks. All right. So once again, for everybody who's still here, this is volume 11. This is the Kickstarter, and it ends tomorrow. One more time. Here's the link. Please go get this book. Support Dan's work and get some awesome stuff. And then again, right, there's that. Before we go, do you have any fun memories from last year?
Oh, last year. Trying to think from JoeFest specifically.
Yeah.
I think it's JoeFest. I'm making sure I'm not mixing up shows. Had a good dinner with Ron and his wife and a couple other guys like Carson and Brian Sauer was there, and who else joined us? One other person. So forgive me. I know I'm forgetting who it was, but yeah, it was good. It was a good, fun dinner. It's always fun to kind of hang out with those guys, and Ron and his wife are wonderful. So I always enjoy getting to see them and do dinner with them. But I'd say that's probably, one of my favorite memories. Another one, I remember someone came up to the table and their little kid I had a couple prototypes in a case, and the kid kept touching the case, and the dad you could just tell he's like panicking. I'm like, it's fine. Like, that's why they're in there. That's why they're protected, yeah. At least the kid was taking interest in it. So, but I remember that, and just seeing everybody. It's always good to see everybody, especially after COVID. It had been a minute, so it's good just to see everybody and talk to people and see people in person. So I'm looking forward to this year's. Hopefully some new memories this year and see how it goes. So,
yeah, very cool. One thing I will say about Ron Rudat and his wife, who are both fantastic people, as my wife and I were talking to them last year. So my wife is an infantry officer, and when they were designing A Real American Hero, it was diverse, it was inclusive, but that's before those became like inserted buzzwords. It just was. It always was. And the fact that Scarlett on her file card is a Ranger School graduate, is combat arms and things like that. As we're standing there talking to Ron Rudat and his wife, and, oh, what do you guys do? And, oh, we're both in the Army, we're in the infantry. And, and I told him, like, G.I. Joe is why I joined the military. Like, G.I. Joe basically laid the foundation of my entire life.
That's awesome.
So I'm 48 years old. I'm still in the infantry. And my wife's in the infantry, and she's an infantry officer. And when she told them that, they were like, that's like really. And then, so then they're just talking to my wife. Like I'm no longer even there. And they're just talking to my wife about, being a female in the infantry. And my wife went to Ranger School, and she's talking about, well, because I know that Scarlett and this, that. And I'm like, cool. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to walk away. I'll go talk to Brian or somebody else.
There you go.
It was super cool. And it was just really cool that they could kind of see that, it's long lasting impact on people.
Yeah.
So
no, for really sure. Cool. And I think that's what a lot of these guys, when they hear, and again, thank you for your service and your wife. I think that's one of the things they love and appreciate is hearing people like yourself who are inspired by what they did. Because I don't think they realized back then, but they do now. Right. So, but Ron and Ginny are great. Anytime I'm up in Rhode Island, we always do dinner. And outside of, the reunion I usually hold, we'll do just dinner, or I'll hang out at their house and just, sit and shit, shoot the shit and stuff like that. So
they're super great people.
They are super great. And them and several others. There's so many people I enjoy getting up there and meeting with them and hanging out and stuff like that. So it's always a pleasure trip to go up there.
And then Kirk too. And like every time I talk to Kirk, I call him sir. He's like, stop calling me that. And I'm like, I can't. You're freaking Kirk Bazigian. He's like, it's just Kirk. Come on. I'm like, nope, won't do it.
I agree.
And then Adam says, thanks, Chad and Dan. This has been great. Anyone watching who hasn't bought the books or supported the Kickstarter, pull the trigger. You won't be disappointed. Absolutely.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Adam.
It.
You will not be disappointed, everybody who's still hanging out with us. And thank you all for hanging out with us. So once again, JoeFest 2023, June 9th through 11th in Augusta, Georgia. Please go if you're planning on going. Come say hi to me. Come say hi to Dan,
Yeah, come say
and
hi.
hang out and have a good time. Dan, you got any closing thoughts?
No, I just appreciate everybody joining in, and yeah, appreciate everybody who's supported this series and continue to support it and enjoy it. You know, that's why I do this, is really to, you know, honor those who worked on the brand themselves, and then also, you know, inspire people to either join collecting or, you know, kind of expand their knowledge as far as the brand and the passion and drive that was behind it all. Because I mean, many of these people, it was more than a job for most. So you know, and just giving something to the community that's there long term. You know, I'm very proud of that. You know, when I started this project, I never knew if it would come to fruition. I knew if I pushed myself, I would do it. But I've been very fortunate to have a lot of the input from those who worked on the brand and support as well throughout the series. So again, everybody's already contributed towards the Kickstarter. Thank you. For those of you on the fence, like Chad said, I encourage you to do it. I agree. I don't think you'll regret it. But yeah, I'm looking forward. I may do some things different with some upcoming volumes due to time. So we'll see. I'm playing around with a couple of different ideas for the next release. When and how it will be released, I might change it up a little bit just for the sake of time. So we'll see.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And my buddy Keith's here. What's up from KB Jotographs? I don't know if you've seen his toy photography, but he's amazing. Thanks for being here, Keith.
Thanks.
And Keith, Brandon, Will, David, Samuel, thank you guys so much. And Dan, I got to thank you for always being a big part of this community. Always, you know, people can always reach out to you. You know, you're humble, you're nice, you're available, and I think that's super cool. I think that's more of what our community needs.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I mean, we're all on air for the same reason. We all enjoy a toy that we grew up on. That's primarily why we're doing what we do, and you know, that's really what drew me into it. I mean, I'm an old timer, I guess you can say, when it comes to this stuff, but yeah, it's been around my entire life, and I'm sure it will be, you know, for the rest of my life. So so yeah, I hear you. But I enjoy the community. It's great people. It's always fun talking and having conversations about things and learning new things too. You know, I'm not the expert on everything. I don't claim to be the expert on everything. I do
don't
my
know
part.
If anyone is, honestly.
No, I mean, you know, there's certain people who are very good at like variants and all these different. I just focus on what I'm focused on and try to share out and, you know, and learn from others as well as I try to teach others with what I'm sharing out in the book. So,
yeah, because even like, you know, you talk to Mark Webber or you talk to Kirk Bazigian or you talk to Ron, and a lot of these guys, Mark Pennington, and they're like, no, I don't think so. Did I do that? I didn't do that.
yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, no, look, it's right here. And then they're like, oh yeah, you know, or Carson, or, you know, a lot of people. It's just so much. There's so much. You know?
There is a lot. There's a lot out
Maybe
there.
somebody can get a master's degree in GI Joe history or something.
There you go. There you go.
Dan, I can't thank you enough for carving out 2.5 hours of your Sunday to hang out with me and everybody else and just talk GI Joe and celebrate your work. And I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate having me on. Like I said, I'd love to come on in the future for future volumes and chat a little bit more and share out. But yeah, Kickstarter ends tomorrow. I'm excited. Got funded and yeah, it started off really strong and kind of lingered there for a minute, but you know, it's been strong for the last week. We funded, I think, about a week and a half ago. So yeah, like I said, this will be out hopefully to print in early May and shipping out to you guys already. And again, just be on the lookout for the upcoming volumes. Like I said, 4 volumes this year. Started off a little bit late with this one, only because I was, like I said, I was really trying to get the idea of how many I was going to have. So this one started a little bit later than I had hoped. But yeah, so keep an eye out very soon. Save up some money from JoeFest. Maybe it'd be a book very shortly after that.
I have to say though, I didn't notice the gap because 9 and 10 are like, I don't really know the word to use, but I'm gonna say meaty, right? 9 and 10 were so meaty that when I saw the Kickstarter for 11, I was like, oh, is it already that time? Okay. Right. So anyway,
Exactly.
thank you so much, Dan. Thank you everybody hanging out with us tonight. And yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.